area that will cost us more in the long run if we cut that out. Can you please confirm with us that the $30 and $70 voucher programs are now back in place?
Yes, Council Member. Linda Barth with Animal Services. The $70 coupons were actually restored about the third week of March, and we began redistributing the $30 coupons on or about April 1st. We distributed them that week. So we're distributing about the same number of coupons per month as we had in previous years. Okay. We're monitoring our payments very, very closely to control our expenses, but all those coupons are being distributed.
The tough economy is believed responsible for about a 20% increase in pets going into LA City shelters this year. Fortunately, adoption rates are also up this year. Dennis Zine of the 3rd District wants to know how the city is paying for the vouchers now if it couldn't before.
What happened to the fact that there was no money to run the program, and now we've got it back in full operation?
The issue about financing had to do with a certain portion of the general fund subsidy of the spay-neuter coupons, which was needed to fill a gap in the department's general fund budget. By working with the city administrative officer and scrubbing our accounts, we think that we have been able to balance our general fund without having to use any additional spay-neuter funds, and that has allowed us, with good tracking, to continue issuing coupons. One of the other things that happened is we were issuing more coupons per month than we were really receiving general fund subsidy because the demand was so high. So we're making sure that we only distribute the right month's worth of coupons each month that matches the money coming in, and none of the additional money is going to balance any general fund budgets. We're handling that within our own budget, and so that's allowed us to say we can follow the council's direction and reinstate both programs, just keeping careful to keep our limit on each coupon distribution each month.
And the problem before, it was a program that was out of control, that is now in control?
Sir, it's now under control, yes, sir.
And then you also mentioned the controller is consulting.
Yes, sir.
In what aspect is the controller's office consulting the department?
One of the challenges that we have dealt with, in fact, the controller also noticed when they did their audit of the spay-neuter programs last August, is that it's some of the accounts are liability accounts and balance sheet accounts, and you can't just sort of go in and look at it like you can at some FMIS accounts and say, okay, I know how much I spent and I know how much I have. So we asked the controller if they could come and help us look at exactly how the cash flow works, how the coupon distribution works, and provide a recommendation about restructuring those funds, maybe not making them balance sheet accounts anymore, making them much more straightforward like typical general fund accounts, so that if council members, you say, I want to know how much money you spent, I can go in and I can just look at it like I can at regular FMIS general fund accounts. So they're providing, and we very much welcome their expertise. They're also advising on how we can redo the invoicing so that we can streamline and ultimately automate the billing of the vets. That way they get paid faster and they will be more satisfied in participating with our program.
And have the complaints from the public been reduced with the new operation?
Yes, sir.
What about the personnel within the department?
Well, we're working very hard. As you know, we're in a transitional period right now. The other assistant general manager and I have had a meeting with supervisors, and we intend to start having regular meetings with them, letting them know the recruitment, what's going on, what the mayor's office is telling us about a new GM, and so forth. We're doing the best we can to really, as I mentioned before to Councilmember Cardenas, to increase and improve our communications with our staff and with our union representatives, and do everything we can to develop a good team communication.
What if you don't spay or neuter your dog at 4 months? What happens to you?
If the department, either because maybe you adopted an animal or purchased it, or it's in our system, you'll receive a notice letter reminding you. If an officer encounters you or your animal for some situation, a call or outside or a leash law, you'll receive a notice. And under the ordinance, you have 60 days then to get the animal spayed or neutered.
And what if you don't get a notice and don't know anything about that? What kind of impact could it have on a person who's watching this show that happens to have a dog, and the dog is over 4 months old, which, by the way, I'm against 4 months. I don't think the animal is mature enough. I think you're really violating the animal's maturity, but I lost that battle. I was the only one who took that position. But going forward with this, and what kind of fines would these people have to face?
If someone is found, again, as we heard before, it is the law. If someone is found to have have an animal that is not spayed or neutered, cat or dog, they will receive a 60-day notice. They will have an opportunity to comply. After 60 days, if they haven't complied, then there's a $100 fine or 8 hours of service. They get another 60 days to comply. After that, it would be a $500 fine.
Only about a third of the dogs and cats in Los Angeles are currently even licensed. Since the spay and neuter discount voucher program's already been resumed, the Animal Department report was noted and filed. Item 11 on Wednesday would alter the 10-year-old living wage ordinance covering people who do work for the City of Los Angeles. One of its purposes was to provide health insurance for those workers or to provide extra wages to allow the workers to buy their own health benefits. 15th District Councilmember Janice Hahn says airport workers could be covered by simply assessing an extra 25-cent fee for every airline ticket sold.
In 1997, the living wage was adopted with a cost of living increase, but the health care portion of the ordinance has never been adjusted. And we know that most employers have chosen to pay this $1.25 because it's certainly much cheaper than providing health care insurance. Let's be honest. There's no real living in this current living wage ordinance. Workers that earn this living wage still struggle just to make ends meet. And the fact that they cannot afford health care just makes it even worse. Clearly, even without looking at all the data, we know that health care costs have increased substantially since 1997. And to begin to right this wrong and adjust the health care portion of the living wage, we've decided to start with our workers at LA International Airport because about 60% of the city's living wage workers are employed there. And not to mention that these airport workers are on the front lines of exposure to infectious disease like we've seen recently with the H1N1. If they don't have health care, they're not going to get the treatment, and that puts us all at risk.
Jose Huizar, representing parts of downtown and East LA, and Tony Cardenas from the Northeast San Fernando Valley were two of several council members describing their own experiences growing up poor.
As the nation talks about health care and what we're going to do to provide health care access for more Americans, it's great that here in the city of Los Angeles we're taking leadership on this issue. We're providing and doing what we can, where we can, and we must do that. Because as the debate increases throughout the country, we don't want to be in Los Angeles saying, well, we should do this, we should do that, and in our own backyard not doing anything about it. And this strikes home personally for me because I know very well when my mother was sick and she got arthritis, it was because her union stepped up, gave her opportunities to have access to doctors so that we wouldn't have to decide whether my mom and my family was going to put food on our table or pay those medical bills. And that's what a lot of people are living through and have to make those decisions. It's very important. It affects all of us because if we don't have a healthy workforce, it's going to affect our service and it's also going to affect the health and well-being of all of us. And let me read something here that I read in one of the reports, that food and retail operators and parking companies at LAX are providing full family health coverage to employees. So what does that tell us? It tells us and it suggests that it's profitable and it can be done for another section of the workforce at LAX. We're with you. Thank you so much for being here today.
I know what it's like to grow up in a house where my father was a gardener. You're darn right. When you own your own business, it's really, really hard to provide that for your family when it's a little small mom and pop business. But when you look at the airport of Los Angeles and you look at the economic engine that it is, we should not overlook the fact that it's an economic engine not just for the community and the businesses, but it should be an economic engine for the workers as well. Something where they can actually work real hard, go home, take care of their families, and live a life of dignity. Whether it's a dog bite or somebody getting sick, I remember what it was like not having insurance. If you got a toothache or something, you get an aspirin and you get a piece of cotton and you put it on your mouth and you just wait it out. And then a week later, it hurts again. And a week later, it hurts again. And eventually, it affects the rest of your teeth, and you got bigger problems. That's a shame in the United States of America, where you have a multi-billion-dollar business like our LA airport, and then we can't even have our workers have health insurance. That's inappropriate, and I think this is a very appropriate motion. Thank you.
And with that, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on this item. Close the roll and tabulate the votes. 12 ayes. 12 ayes. Congratulations.
Also on Wednesday, Richard Alarcon described his proposed pilot Council District 7 foreclosure prevention program.
This program is unique in several ways. Number one, it suggests that we can compel banks to do the right thing. And that is our greatest challenge, I believe, with regard to the foreclosure problem throughout the nation. It does, it provides the compelling purpose by providing a second loan from the City of Los Angeles, essentially to securitize the credit of the buyer. So it basically says if the banks are willing to lower the principal down to the current market value, in Pacoima that would take a house loan from perhaps $400,000 to $200,000, then the city will assist in securitizing that loan by providing a soft second that would be paid back through the sale of the property. Once the person sells the property 10 years down the road, then the city will be paid back, and that proportion is securitized by an equity share. So the city would become an equity share holder of the property. So we would reduce the risk almost to a bare minimum. The only risk that would occur is if the prices continue to fall further, which I don't think many people anticipate, then we would lose a proportion of the 10 or 20% that we provide as a soft second.
Councilmember Rosendahl called up representatives of the LA Housing Department for some clarification on the numbers and who might qualify.
Could you explain how you provide, as Mr. Alarcon was saying, the backup supportive services on this? How does this all work from your perspective?
Sure. Good afternoon. Yolanda Chavez with the Housing Department. As the councilman explained, CRA has identified $1 million for this pilot program. What LAHD is going to be doing, as you know, we have a very, I'm going to say a really excellent homeownership unit. The two gentlemen sitting here on each side are both members of that unit. Doug Swager is the director of the Homeownership and Preservation Unit. So they underwrite all of the down payment assistance that we do in the department. As you know now, with the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, they will be underwriting all of those seconds and down payment assistance that we do for new homeowners. And so through this program, we will be working with One LA to help negotiate with the lenders to be able to reduce some of that principal, underwrite the loans that come in for assistance to be able to reduce the principal so that the payment for that homeowner becomes affordable down to 31%.
How do they know if they're eligible or not? Somebody watching this says, oh my God, I've got this burden on me, I don't know what I'm going to do. How does one qualify for this? How does one, receive the right support? And what should they do if they think they qualify?
Let me explain what we're proposing in this program. As you know, President Obama released the Making Home Affordable program in March. There are two components to that program, which, and of course the goal is to help homeowners that are in danger of foreclosure. One component is to help homeowners refinance, and these are homeowners that are not behind on their payments, and to put it in a very clear way, not too much underwater in terms of the value of the home. The other component is the loan modification program that is targeted at homeowners that are behind on their payments and whose home value has decreased. The goal of that program is to make the monthly payment affordable to that homeowner to 31% of their gross income. What we did, One LA actually provided very critical information to us. They provided information on mortgage loan data for 105 households. Based on that, and we still need some additional information I want to make clear, such as income, such as household size, size, the type of loan, et cetera. But based on the information they gave us, we did an analysis of how many of those households would be eligible for the refinance program under Making Home Affordable, and how many would be eligible for the modification program, both without city assistance. Because we felt it was important that we leveraged federal resources along with this program. So based on that, about 42% of those households would qualify for either one of those programs.
Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Matter passes. Thank you.
It's expected that a couple dozen families could be helped to keep their homes under the pilot District 7 foreclosure prevention program, which then might be expanded citywide. In the entire city, there were 12,000 mortgage notices of default during the first 3 months of 2009. On Friday, May 15th, Council heard hours of public comment on the budget that comes before the full City Council this week. Chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, Bernard Parks, gives his colleagues a preview of what to expect beyond the well-publicized proposal to freeze police hiring during the current budget crisis.
Departments, those 38 to 40 departments other than police, fire, they have suffered somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30% cuts. They took a cut by all vacant positions were taken from them. They then had a 3 to 5% salary savings that was taken out of their fund, and then they were given a 10% shared responsibility that had no funding attached to it. And so these are the things that we were confronted with, and that's the $200+ million that is in deficit. I think what's important for us also to continue to explain to the public about trash fees. We did it during that budget about 15 times, that you can raise the trash fees. They were not, and it would be illegal for us to dedicate them for police hiring. They were to increase the general fund because we were subsidizing single-family homes over $200 million for trash pickup. Those funds went into the budget, and we spent them on a variety of things, including police. And up until that time when we created the trash fee, we had something called the trash equipment fee that we only charged the public for equipment picking up the trash. We transitioned after a 2-year review into trash fees, but it went into the general fund and paid for a number of things. Many of you remember the controller actually did an audit that reflected that the money was spent appropriately and that you could not legally earmark it.
We hope you'll be watching the council budget debates this week, taking the place of many of the normally scheduled weekly council activities and meetings, right here on LA City View, Channel 35. LA City View is the government access cable channel for the City of Los Angeles, featuring live coverage of city council meetings and programming about city department services and events. Now, if you have suggestions or comments about any of the programs you see here on Channel 35, or would like to receive a free viewer guide, call our viewer hotline at 213-473-3978. And we invite you to address the Los Angeles City Council on any item on the council agenda, as well as during public comment. You may come downtown to City Hall, or go to the Van Nuys City Hall or the San Pedro City Hall and participate via video teleconferencing. And remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. On Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending May 15th, 2009. On behalf of Warren Hill and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
Cause I've got trouble holding this man of mine. It seems there's always...
Driver, over here.
Sir, remove your shoes. Sir, remove your shoes and stand here. You have to focus when crossing a street. Every day, pedestrians are seriously injured or even killed because they're not paying attention when they cross, or because drivers fail to yield. A pedestrian always has the right of way. Pay attention, obey the law, or deal with the consequences. Look before you cross. Cars can't...
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
morning. This is a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council. We meet on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10 a.m. here in the council chambers, the first Friday of the month. We meet in the San Fernando Valley. You can also access the City Council through Channel 35, through www.lacity.org, as well as go to our Van Nuys or San Pedro offices and be able to access our City Council meeting. We do need 10 members for a quorum today. I want to thank Council members Cardenas, Hahn, Labange, Rosendahl, and Zine. Ask that Council members Alarcon, Weisar, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, and Mr. Smith is here, and Mr. Weston to please make their way down to the council chambers so we can begin our meeting, because otherwise we will entertain a motion for adjournment if we don't have members in a few minutes. much to council members Cardenas, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Rosendahl, Smith, and Weston. And Zine, we are still waiting for Alarcon, Perry, and Reyes. However, we do have a quorum. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, West, Weston, Zine, Garcetti, 10 members present, and a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Yes. Mr. Smith moves. Ms. Hahn seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Those will be approved.
Madam President, would you like to go through the agenda?
Please.
First items on the agenda are items noticed for public hearing. And I'm sorry, before beginning the regular agenda, there is a request to continue two of the items. Item number 7, a request to continue that matter to May 27th.
Without objection, that will be continued to May 27th.
And also, there's a request on item number 19 to continue that matter to June 19th, and that's 30 days.
I'm sorry, which item was that?
I'm sorry, number 19.
19, okay. Continued for 30 days. Okay.
First items on the agenda are items noticed for public hearings. The first group of items are building and safety confirmation of liens, and the the department has recommended that items 2 and 5 be received and filed inasmuch as the liens have been paid.
Without objection, those will be received and filed.
And that would leave items 1, 3, 4, and 6 for confirmation, and I believe there is a card on 3.
And this is a required public hearing, so item number 3 will be called special. Any other specials colleagues? This would be items 1, 4, or 6. If not, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on these items, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Thank you. Next items?
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 8 through 18.
Yes, Mr.
Cardenas, item number 9.
9 to be called special?
Yes.
We're going to call item number 10 special for a vote. Thank you. Any other specials, colleagues? This is 8 and items 11 through 18. If not, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on these items, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Thank you. Next item?
And Madam President, just for Council's information, the order on item number 8 will go over for 1 week.
Thank you. If we do have 12 members, we can reconsider that if need be.
It's in special.
Next items?
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held, items 20 through 29. 10 votes are required for consideration. Item number 20 is confirmation of a commissioner. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
We will hold that on the desk.
And that would leave 21 through 29.
We do have cards on items 21, 24, 25, 28, and 29. Any other specials, colleagues? Any other specials? Not, Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Yes.
Yes, number 22 forthwith.
Thank you. I think we have both, actually 22 and 23 are forthwith, but they are ordinances. So at least it says here on my sheet that they're ordinances, so have to come back next week if we do have a quorum. If we do get the 12 members. I keep saying 13, 12 members, we can reconsider and then have that go forth. Thank you. Next items?
That would take council back to public comment and the items called special and also the commissioner.
I know on item 10 was only called special. Is Mr. Alarcon here? Is Mr. Alarcon? Excuse me, staff, is Mr. Alarcon here yet? Mr. Alarcon is not here yet? Okay. We were going to vote on item number 10. Does he want to not be present or he wants to have it voted? All right, we'll wait till he gets here. Colleagues, if we could, then we will go back to public comment. And just a notice, colleagues, we've been starting around 10:15, 10:20. If we could ask those members who are scheduled to be here at 10, we can get them here at 10 o'clock. Dr. Clyde Williams, Chuck Tenon, then we'll go out to the San Fernando Valley and come back from here. So Dr. Clyde Williams.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA. The Friends of Southwest Museum Coalition has approximately 15 neighborhood councils from the Northeast LA area supporting them. However, we have not had any support really from the City Council or from the the Board of Parks and Recreation. The Autry National Center continues to use the Southwest Museum as a means of getting money for their overhead and for some minor repairs that they've done on the Southwest Museum. They took over $5 million during the merger agreement. So what we're concerned about is that the Board of Recreation and Parks has not fulfilled its commitment to the lease agreement with the Autry National Center in Griffith Park. Griffith Park continues to be even called part of it, the proposed part of it, to be the Southwest Museum, but translocated over to Griffith Park to a more suitable environment. We would like to make sure that the Board of Recreation and Parks and its commissioners conduct business in a business-like manner. That is, make the Autry fulfill all of its obligations under the terms and conditions of its lease agreement and make sure that they have the money to do what they say they're doing. Without seeing the books, which have been required for the last 20 years, there's no way of confirming or denying what they have and what they want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. In the chambers, it's very noisy. On the side conversations, can you please quiet down? Sergeant Arms, can you please maintain that? It gets too loud and we can't hear from the speakers. Thank you. Our next speaker, Chuck Tenon.
Good morning, council members. Chuck Tenon. Public trust is critical, and so is our state's credibility in making decisions that affect the people, especially in these terrible times of economic hardship and sinking economy. Governor Arnold, go back to the drawing board and sharpen your pencil. Change is coming and the power of the people is prevailing. Bad decisions of our lawmakers will drive costs up at a perilous time of uncertainty that will continue to devastate business, loss of more jobs, deeper budget deficits, more economic hardship, loss of housing, trade, tourism, revenues in this failing economy. We must shelve this madness until our economy returns and focus on critical issues that continue to affect us all and try and correct them. Change is the key. Our state legislators, city leaders, and governor's dream team should reconsider the harmful consequences of bad decisions, long-term goals, ongoing costs, planning issues with full disclosure, accountability, and transparency to the people. Interest in not just a few, but in all, and not politics over policy and potentially devastating cumulative impact on the people of California and this city that are affected in the sinking economy. And the power of the people must prevail. You give to get. It always works. Hats off to Carmen Nuch Trutanek. It will be good to see a new face in City Hall and a good change for the people of this city. Farewell, Jack. Money doesn't always win. It's the power of the people that wins, and our city council leaders must be reminded by us to never forget that, especially when they spend our money and serve the needs of our city and the people that live in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Perfect timing on that. Mr. Tom LaBonge has an introduction to make. Tom LaBonge.
Mr. President, members, I'd like to ask one of the greatest elementary schools, not just in the city of Los Angeles, the San Fernando Valley, but the whole state of California. Please welcome Lanai Road Elementary School from Encino. Give a big hand. And Alec, come here. Alec, I want you to introduce every child by name.
Wait. Not every child by name.
Stand up and be recognized by the city council.
There you go.
Just say thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. LaBonge. Thank you. It's fun coming to city council, students. Thank you very much. Our next speaker will go to the San Fernando Valley for Zuma Dog. San Fernando Valley Zuma Dog.
Thank you very much. I'm going to get emotional today, and I am so glad true leader, Dennis Zine, is behind the president podium where he should remain. We have a new city attorney in the city of Los Angeles, and I'm here to say I've been following only 3 years. This is the best day. This is the best day that the people of Los Angeles have had in a long time. I'm here to say corruption has taken a major hit. Villaraigosa's political machine has gone down. The political machine did win. The people's political machine that backed Carmen Tutanich. And congratulations to Carmen, and the people want to know who he is. They might not know much about him, but I can tell you, as somebody who's known Carmen for 7 months, he's as people's guy as you can get, and Carmen has helped Zuma Dog in ways that no one else has, in a very compassionate way. He spent time talking to me, and it's a great day. And Dennis Zine, who I'd like to council to really recognize, imagine the risk he took. Dennis Zine is the one that introduced me to Carmen and said, Zuma, you got to know Carmen. Carmen, you got to know Zuma. And from there, the community rallied. Dennis Zine, pivotal. He stood up against corruption. He stood up against Villaraigosa. He stood up against Jack Weiss. Here is a man who stands up against the filth, against the corruption. Dennis Zine. He went on radio. He got involved. And imagine what would have happened if Jack Weiss would have won city attorney. Imagine what Dennis would have had to put up with. So what can I say? Sometimes I get cranky when he doesn't call my cards, and Dennis has gotten the wrath of Zuma Dog as hard as anybody, and I will always remember what he did for the people. And Carmen Tutanich, and the people that helped him, and the people who voted. This was a clear victory, 11 points, and with all the machine, Villaraigosa's going down. It's over for Villaraigosa. It's over for corruption. William H. Jackson stepped down. Weatherly Capital, Carmen Tutanich and the people, thank you for making my day.
Thank you, Zuma Dog. Maybe we'll give him 5 more minutes. What do you think?
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. A little lightheartedness today. Okay, Rick Nightingale out in the valley. Rick Nightingale?
Yes, good morning, Rick Nightingale.
Hey, Rick, will you notify Zuma Dog that he can't smoke in the city facility? I don't want to see him arrested.
He's just chewing on it, that's all.
All right.
Yeah, Rick Nightingale. Yeah, I'm really glad the vote came out good. The people, I wish there was more that voted, but they didn't. But that's the way it goes, you know. But hopefully things will change. Like I said before, I've been in construction. I got laid off. Don't like it. Had to go home, tell the wife. And now it's your turn. Through the whole state of California and the city council. This thing about furlough days and so forth, you got to get with the program. I hate to say it, but people have to get laid off. You people are so top-heavy, it's unbelievable, and now it's time. The people have spoke that they are not paying any more taxes and so forth, so it's time. I'm really sorry, but people are going to be laid off. And that's the way it has to be. As soon as you get with the program regarding the retirement programs, then you'll really be in good shape. But until then, it's just going to keep going on. But now we have a chance that you can start, hopefully balance the budget, like you turn Schwarzenegger down. You blame him for a lot of things, but he tried the last election to get a balanced budget, and you people voted it down. That's one of the reasons why this all came about this. I hope when you go back in the chambers and so forth and vote, that you turn around and don't let any of the minority people and so forth, like they tried to make me like a bigot and so forth, go against you and cut some of these programs. We cannot have all of these programs. And think for yourself and do what you got to do, like Zion did, and he put himself out on a limb, and I hope the rest of you council will do the same thing and think for yourself and for the people. I realize that a lot of the poor are out there and they need it, but you got to balance the budget, or else everything else is going down, and that has been proven. Thank you.
Daniel Garcia? Daniel Garcia, please.
Good morning, council members. I want to say to you that about the Department on Disability, that you should not join any department on disability with other departments, because this department is unique. It provides services with disability, and I don't think no other department has served the better to the constituents on disability. Furthermore, if you want to join the department, do it with the aging, Department of Aging, because the Department of Aging has the same issue that is the Department on Disability. It's just, the label is different, but it has the same issue. Furthermore, I would like to say that about the rally that's going to happen on May 22nd at noon at the Assembly Speaker Buchanan Barr's office, 300 Spring Street, downtown LA. This is for the in-home supportive services that are going to be cut because voters did not approve the proposal for the state. So I'm here to ask you and the community to make this rally a successful rally. And I want to invite the council members to come too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Arnold Sachs, please. Arnold Sachs.
Good morning. Thank you, council members. Arnold Sachs. Unfortunately, I missed the budget hearings, but I am concerned about the discussion regarding the police hiring and the twisting of facts and the way you leave the public twisting in the air. Can we get some answers, maybe, to help to diffuse or to clarify the situation? The mayor has discussed that he wants to hire 1,000 new officers. Do we have a target date for when this size, the new size of the police department will be reached? There's an article in the LA Times regarding the police department suffers a rate of 540 officers attrition per year. They want to hire 600 officers, or a little over 600 officers a year to offset that attrition. That being offset plus the 60 extra officers would work out in 2 years to be over 1,000 officers and keep the force at the same size. You twist the facts, the mayor twists the facts, Mayor Vice Zaragoza twists the facts, screaming fire when he's on the bottom of the ocean, the economy is in the tank, and we need to hire more police officers. Is the budget still accepting the number of police officers to offset the attrition? If it's not, then the 1,000 new police officers the mayor wants, needs to have hired, that number will be offset in less than 2 years. We need some clear answers. Mayor Vice Zaragoza, stop twisting the facts, come clean to the public, and if you were so concerned, why did you offer the pay raise to the unions a year and a half ago when you knew this dark cloud was on the horizon? Thank you for your time, answers, and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Thank you. And just briefly to answer your question, the LAPD will reach 10,000 officers on this coming Monday.
That's right.
This coming Monday, they'll reach 10,000, the magic number we've strived for. A man from the past, Leonard Shapiro. Welcome back, Leonard Shapiro.
No. Well, that's very nice to have a welcome like that. I haven't been here in quite some time, and I'm just thinking about coming back regularly like I used to come, 3 times a week, and then write up in the LA Observer, which I may start to republish again, and all the support that I had from you. It was nice to welcome everybody from the old school that I used to know, like Richard Alarcon and Bill Rosendahl, Tom LaBonge, even Dennis Zine up there, and Parks as soon as I can get his attention. But the main thing I wanted to
talk to the city council about in the minute and 15 seconds I have left is the fact that I'm fast approaching my 90th birthday, and on September 11th, the famous birth date, you'll have me here. Now, I'll have my decision made as to whether I'm going to really come back and get back in the issues of the city council once more. It was nice to see these students from the school to come here, because I have brought 5,000 students approximately to visit the city council on the premise that if they come as children, there's a good chance they'll come as adults. And if you look at the room now, you can see we don't have too many adults here. And I think the adults in this area deserve a lot more representation. They have to worry. Oh, hello, Janice, I forgot you. And I always remember that some people are concerned with the welfare of the city, what the city can do. And I think that concentration on the students will help a lot. The fact that the mayor's man, Cortinas, doesn't want to talk to me about coming again, and the fact that I got a bit hard time from Romer, and the fact that they don't want students to come back here, and I think we do want students to come back here. We want everybody
Leonard, thank you. Your time is up. Leonard, your time is up. You had 2 minutes, and we appreciate your return to City Council. Thank you, and happy soon to be 90.
Well, that hasn't changed.
Thank you.
It's always great to see everybody.
Mr. Bechtel.
Nice way of telling somebody to shut up, huh? Okay, I just want to come back and say something about I was here yesterday, we were talking about trash bags. I found an article in the LA Times dated September the 8th, 1977, page F15, column 3, and it talks about the title of it, New Trash Bag Disintegrates Under Sunlight. It was developed by Bez Pack and Company, Incorporated of Montgomery, Alabama, with L.E. Stollenberg, the president. That's a name that's synonymous with this city, Stollenberg, who married Doheny, etc. If you're trying to charge 25 cents for plastic bags, that's ridiculous when you've already got plastic bags that have been in the works for over, 72, 77, 87, for over 20 years that disintegrate, like I already told you about already. And that's ridiculous to charge 25 cents when it's only 5 cents for CRV or 5 cents for recycling a glass bottle. You people are really doing yourself the wrong situation here, and those nylon bags that you say are reusable, they're not reusable. If you spill something in them right after the store, or if you drop an egg in them, it costs $1. And if every time somebody goes to the grocery store they got to pay $1 for a bag to put their groceries in, they're going to learn to stop buying things. And that's not what we're after here in the state of California, trying to get people, trying to help the economy. So I think that you better bring that item up back again and re-vote on that, or redraft it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bechtel. Mr. Herman? Mr. Herman?
Well, of course, when you're with the league, huh?
Is Mr. Herman here? All right. Thank you. Coming on up.
Constituents of Boyle Heights, I've been a long-time resident, hoping to service us all and receive services that have been a very frustrating example of tax waste. This frustration with dysfunction within our city's budget has hindered the voters for what they want, which is council support to fix it. We're tired and disgusted over the game and the gone of our tax-paying dollars. We need services that will emphasize the growth and the need of our community. I'm concerned because I've seen bad go to worse. And I try my best to be positive in the community of Boyle Heights, but the fear of this recession that has been an ongoing problem, and now the future of this depression that's going to sink us into a deeper sorrow, so to speak. But maybe our council will get a message, or get the message. The projected deficit should not fall on sleeping ears. The city again faces this cash crunch. Now, my subject here today is to ask Mr. Huizar for your added help. As an advocate and supporter of Boyle Heights, I wish and like to continue my effort to beautify my neighborhood. Not just mine, but for all in our community. I make a petition to you, if you're here, and to those of you who are supportive, please help us remove the blight. Help us stand in this time of hardship to do better, not worse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have public speaker comments complete. And Madam Clerk, the next item.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 20, and that's confirmation of a commissioner, Ms. Judith Baez, to the Rec and Park Commission.
Please come forward. Please come forward to the table. Mr. LaBonge.
Members, Ms. Baez, Judith is a tremendous asset to the City of Los Angeles and the Board of Recreation and Parks Commissioner, former mayor of San Bernardino, very passionate about helping people, president of Los Angeles Mission College in the San Fernando Valley, resident of the 9th District in the central part of the city. She is a very successful person who has been tapped by Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa to help with our Recreation and Parks Department. Ms. Baez, would you please tell us your passion and why you could serve this commission so well?
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. My passion. I have many passions, and one of them is that one is continually learning and serving. When I was asked by the mayor's office if I would consider serving on the commission, I, of course, looked on the website, and Recs and Parks Commission in the city of Los Angeles is quite different from other parks and recs in other areas that I have lived in and served in. I think it's absolutely critical that the treasures of any city, the green spaces and the recreation opportunities for our young people, be maintained and be active and supported. And I will do everything I can to help in that regard.
Members, I ask for an aye vote, and I'm looking forward to your enthusiasm and all the history that you have, not only as an elected official, but as an educator, to helping our Department of Recreation and Parks serve our community better. Thank you.
Mr. Alarcon, followed by Mr. Cardenas, then Mr. Reyes.
Members, Judith is president of Mission College, as was mentioned, and it's been a pleasure to work with her with the college, which is a part of the 7th Council District. They are under massive development out there, and one of the requirements of massive development is to work with the community. So Judith, in her short tenure there, has established a very good relationship with the community in trying to expand college opportunities to the Northeast San Fernando Valley. But I've known of Judith for many, many years because when Nell Soto was running for the Senate, she actually wanted Judith to run for the Assembly. And so we Democrats up north actually vetted her resume, and we were ready to endorse her for the Assembly. But she wanted to remain in the educational field and chose to stay. She could have easily been having been the mayor of San Bernardino, she could have easily been the assembly person for that area. But she is dedicated to education, and we're very pleased to have her at Mission College. let me also explain that Mission College has had some tumult over the last several years, conflicts particularly in the professor level with some ethnic strife, quite frankly. And under the previous president, he set a hard line, and Judith has followed that line, and it is respected. So I am very pleased that I'm not getting any more emergency phone calls from either party. But the fact of the matter is, to have the opportunity to have a former mayor of a relatively large jurisdiction, albeit low in population, a very large jurisdiction, with the complexity of issues, to have a president of a college with educational experience, and to have somebody with the caliber and talent of Judith Valles. We are very fortunate to make this find. So I told her I was going to give her a hard time. I was just kidding. But I strongly recommend and am very pleased that we are going to see her on the Recreation and Parks Commission.
Thank you.
Mr. Cardenas.
I just think it's important for the Angelinos to know how fortunate we are to have people of Judith Valles' caliber willing to give up their free time, what little free time they have, with all their experience and wealth of knowledge and dedication to the public. Judith Valles has been a mayor. She's been an elected official for many, many years. And when I was in the state legislature and we were looking for good people to bring to the state legislature so that they could do a good job, Judith Valles' name was always on the top of the list. But one of the things I wanted to compliment her before all of the people of Los Angeles is that she didn't allow her ego to say, well, I can be a mayor of a city and then I can go up and be a state senator, an assemblyman, and I can walk right into that job, because she had that reputation in her community where she could have walked into any assembly or senate seat anytime she chose to put her name on the ballot. But she didn't allow her ego to dictate her decision. She allowed her dedication to her community to dictate her decision, and she did not run for the legislature. And even though we begged her, even though we pleaded with her, even though we expressed to her how we'd like to have her up there in the legislature to be one of the more responsible and effective legislators in the state, she chose to remain dedicated to her community. And that's one of the things that's very rare in politics. Too many of us run for office and we allow our egos to dictate sometimes our decisions. And that's one of the things I'd like to compliment before all of you. Judith Valles is someone who is truly a public servant, and for us to have her, to have her on the Recreation and Parks Commission is an overkill of talent. It really is. And for her to give of her time, the many, many hours that she's going to dedicate, is going to be something that we truly are going to benefit from. Again, I just want people to understand what a high caliber public servant we have here, someone with a tremendous amount of experience and connections and a willingness to give of herself over and over again. When I found out that she was going to be the president of the community college nearest to my district in Sylmar, I was so surprised. I had called her and said, is that really you? Are you the Judith Valles that I know? And she said, yes. And I said, wow, how lucky we are to have you continuing to dedicate yourself to the constituents of the city of Los Angeles. So once again, I can't say enough about what a wonderful and dedicated person you are, Judith, and how overqualified you are for this position. So thank you so much. And once again, I think we're very, very fortunate to have you dedicating more of your time to the people of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Reyes, followed by Councilmember Hahn, followed by Councilmember Perry.
Thank you, Council President. Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to say thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Obviously, my colleagues have recognized the invaluable contribution they have given this great city, this region.
I'm looking forward to it.
But I wanted to ask you one question. It's a challenge we have.
Yes.
It's a challenge we have because in our Recreation and Parks Department, what's lacking is accountability and how cash is how the transactions of cash occur. We have many ball fields that we've invested in. We've added new soccer fields for our kids, our families. What we find is that for one reason or another, they're being leased, or someone spends, I'm not sure how much, $8, $9, whatever the fee is per hour. What happens is that person who gets that access turns around and rents out the field for a higher cost. And the end result is that the end user is not the people who live in that area. It's not the children of the area. It's whoever can pay that higher amount because of the control of that ball field, whether it's soccer or baseball. I'm not sure what's happening with the basketball courts, to be honest with you. So my question to you is, as a commissioner, could that be a priority of yours as we look at how we make that department more economically efficient, given our dire economic times, but more importantly, to increase access to our children, for our children on these ball fields? I wanted to ask if that's something you would consider. It seems to me we're going to be giving a real strong yes. But is that an area of concern that would be of your interest?
Of course, it's always an area of concern to provide the best facilities for all kids of the entire Los Angeles area. Now, when you talk about people being very creative and entrepreneurial as far as raising funds for the department, I think I would have to, I don't think, I know, I have to be actively involved in the commission so I can understand what really are all the issues and the problems that are pointing and making this necessary to happen. So I don't know if I have the right answer for you, but that's my answer.
Yes, no, and it's hard to have a right answer without having all the information in front of you. It's an area of concern I'm sharing with you.
Sure.
I've been like a broken record. I've raised this point time and time again. I really believe the CAO, with the director of the department, has to come up with a strategy on how to use technology, credit cards, or some way of creating transactions without the direct cash in hand. I think that'll minimize the type of bleeding that we're feeling and disservice that's being felt by our children in our city. So I thank you for your presence. I've reviewed your resume, and it's amazing. As a Latina, you were at the cutting edge, working with media, working in education, and it's great to have you here, and I look forward to working with you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn?
Thank you, Madam President. Well, Judith, I really want to thank you for accepting this opportunity. And as everyone has said, you come to this commission, I think, with a great perspective and a tremendous amount of life experiences,
That's for sure.
which I think will really be valuable. I'm just going to take this opportunity to tell you about an issue that I've had, and that's trying to find suitable park space to develop for soccer fields or baseball fields. We're clearly running out of land. I have a community, particularly Wilmington, which the whole community lives over pipelines and has all their land has pretty much been polluted by either a former use or the Port of Los Angeles, that kind of heavy industry, which has really damaged, I think, a lot of open space possibilities. So I've been trying to work with the department to take over, whether it's an old railroad right-of-way or some other piece of property that clearly has, hazardous materials has infected it. But I want to find a way, and I just wanted to bring this to your attention, that continue to look for ways that we can work with these properties. Obviously we don't want to allow kids to be anywhere near a hazardous piece of property, and yet these kids are probably already playing on that property right now after school with no soccer fields and no backstops. So I just want you to look at that, pay attention to that, and see if we can find ways to redeem some of these properties so that kids could actually have a place to play in their neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. I will.
Thank you.
Ms. Perry?
Thank you very much, and you don't know me, but I'm Councilwoman Perry, and it's good to meet you.
I've been in your office, and I've met your staff.
Good. I wanted to ask you if you could focus on some of the issues that we have in the ninth that are not necessarily unusual in terms citywide, but I'm just going to list a couple of them. Conflict between soccer leagues and how the park manages time leagues can play on the field in a way that is perceived by the community to be fair and equitable, and to make sure that there is infrastructure in place in terms of the regulations so that people can't take advantage of players and take money from them to make profit. Because it's a constant problem for us in the parks in the southern part of the district. And then secondly, repairs and operational issues. I spend a lot of times just walking through the parks and making lists, and I send them to Mr. Muckery. And they don't all have to do with the current budget crisis. Some of the issues have gone on for years. For example, down at 51st and Avalon, the grass is dying because our own city trucks are driving out over the grass. You can see the tire tracks. I've mentioned before a step that's been broken for about 3 years. I mentioned it because I actually fell on it, and it still hasn't been fixed. Little things like that, where cumulatively they add up in the park to, going to the disadvantage of the community. People who set up homeless encampments in the handball courts, and then the park staff may not feel empowered enough to call and ask for help. Again, ongoing problem in the parks in the southern part of the district, just to name a few. So I really need your help on that, and a strong commission voice to address those issues through the commission would be really, really helpful.
Well, we'll see what we can do if we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you, and so happy that you received this appointment, and we've had a chance to meet and talk about some of the great ideas, and you are someone who thinks outside the box. And there's, Recreation and Parks is a department that provides services to those who otherwise might not have a place to go in a lot of programs. So we look forward to your voice there on the Rec and Parks Commission.
You'll hear it.
I know you will. We have a couple public comment cards, so if you could please just stay seated there until we get through the public comment. Dr. Clyde Williams, followed by Arnold Sachs, and then we'll go out to the San Fernando Valley to Zuma Dog. And Mr. Sachs, if you'd make your way down, that would be great. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA. We need parks too. However, the Board of Commissioners for Recreation and Parks for 20 years has not enforced the lease agreement between Rex and Park and the Autry National Center. They have not required annual submittals of their financial reports, progress reports, extensions, modifications of the building, or the pricing of the entry fees and products within even the shop and within the restaurant. We would hope that the new commissioners would not take the same path as the existing commissioners and would enforce the terms and conditions of a valid city lease agreement on 12 acres of what was open space in Griffith Park, one of our best and most valuable resources for recreations and park usage. Also, the commissioner should be aware that the Autry National Center has direct access and ownership of 12 acres of open space and historic structure regarding the Southwest Museum in Northeast LA, which they are attempting to show that they're trying to do something with it, but it is a very large recreation and parks resource which the Autry National Center has chosen not to fully develop to its potential as its own plans demonstrated. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sachs? And we'll go out to the San Fernando Valley.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Arnold Sachs, congratulations on your appointment. Just FYI, you might want to, if you have the opportunity, to check with LA Weekly. Within the last year, they did an article on LA's parks and recs, and in a play on words, they spelled recs, W-R-E-C-K-S. Might give you some background information into what exactly you're getting into. I'd also like you to know, or have you consider, the fallout from the Grand Avenue project, where the city and the county were able to receive upfront Quimby fees to develop the park that they want to build between the City Hall and the County Board of Administration. I'd like to know if you would consider pushing that for all major developers to have to pay their Quimby fees up front. And then I'd also like you to know about the idea that the city used the seller's appraiser to try to buy a portion of land in downtown LA for a small park, and what do you think of that idea and that form of city government using the seller's appraiser, and then the city having a bid on what the appraiser comes up with for property that they want to use to develop parkland. And then also the use of the Quimby fees. A couple of years ago there was a demonstration regarding some land that had been turned into some garden land, and if the use of Quimby fees can be extended to use for that property, the property would have cost $15 million, granted, but at the time Parks and Recs has a balance of over $120 million. These are some things you need to look into maybe, and maybe add some input to, because the city and the city council are too busy sitting on their hands, except their hands are missing.
Thank you. We'll go to Zumadog.
Yes, thank you. Again, a triumphant day for the city of Los Angeles. And again, I'm going to try to stay on topic here. Please try to follow along, because a lot of times you try to cut me off on this commissioner appointments. Please follow along. After 3 years of activism, after attending majority of council meetings, after looking at all the agenda items, I'm here to say the biggest problem with the city is not the little things like my neighborhood council money and the promotional materials of that or this or that or the other thing. It's the commission appointments that all go down just like this one, warm and fuzzy. It's a great person, has done so much, a community leader, very educated. And again, I don't know this candidate from the rest. And all the council members get up and approve the appointments. But then we find out $7 billion was lost in pension money from these exact commission appointments that come through just like this with all the same accolades. And then we find SEC investigations. I spoke with District Attorney Steve.
Madam President, he should be directing his comments to this commission appointment.
Thank you, Dion. Thank you. And I hope you got my second message yesterday. I apologize. But then what I'd like to say, I don't know how else to say it. I guess I'd have to say vote no on all Villaraigosa commissioners until the feds have sorted out this mess. Because here's why it's important to council. Just be very aware of who you're appointing. Because when you approve somebody that ends up getting arrested for corruption and money laundering through these commission appointments, well, you have signed on. Your name is on this appointments. And, hey, I think you're too small fish for them to really get involved with, but you are held accountable. And I'm here to say corruption occurs through these commission appointments. VLAR's only job is to appoint the commissioners and get out of the way.
Thank you. This item is now before us. Madam Clerk, if you could open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Welcome to the city family today. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if we could please reconsider items 8, 22, and 23 for 12 members. So if we could open the roll in reconsideration, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Thank you. That item is now before us. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're going to approve them. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
And 22 and 23 will go forth with Mr. Smith. Thank you. We would like to vote now on item number 10. If we had it before us, I think one of our members wanted to vote no. So, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on item number 10, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
11 ayes, 1 no.
Okay, thank you. Forthwith on that item. Thank you, Mr. Parks. Next item?
Next item, Madam President, item number 3, call special for cards.
Yes. Mr. Zumadog?
I didn't hear. If this is 3, pass on 3.
Madam Clerk, please open the roll on item number 3, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Thank you. And Mr. Zimadag, I would ask that if you would, before putting in cards, note which ones you actually want to speak on. We do have staff that wait here until those items come before us, and it would be appreciative in not wasting the time and energy of those staff. Next item.
Next item, Madam President, is item number 9, and that was called special for Councilmember Cardenas.
Yes, Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you. Could we have a representative from the City Attorney's Office come forward?
Good morning, Councilmember.
Good morning. First, I'd like to get a little bit of a backdrop of what we're doing in California and LA County and LA City in general. More and more teenagers of today are actually doing time or getting sentences that 20 and 30 and 40 years ago for the same thing, people in society thought, oh, that's no big deal, just slap them on the hand, have mom grab them by the ear and take them home and tell them never to do it again. More and more today, the laws coming down from Sacramento, locally, etc., are moving our young people for lesser and lesser offenses. For less and lesser offenses, actually creating sentences where they may actually be doing time or get harsher sentences. What we're talking about here in this changing of our administrative code is we're talking about, changing the code, we're talking about actually a restitution process when it comes to people being tried for doing graffiti, which is a vandalism case, correct?
That is correct.
So, before you explain what this is, what I'd like to affirm with you, if this is the case, when it comes to a young person doing time in the state of California, we're spending, this is a fact, this is according to the state of California giving me this information. When a young person does time behind bars, they wear those little orange jumpsuits, we, the taxpayers, are paying $252,000 a year for them to be behind bars. Now, instead of tracking them to go that route, what we're talking about here is coupling the responsibility of their parents and the actual young person together and creating an opportunity for them to do some kind of restitution or payback and or remove the graffiti and community service, correct?
That is correct.
Is that a lot cheaper than $252,000 a year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you tell us what this is about?
Yes, sir. Thank you, and I'll be as brief as possible. Thank you for the opportunity, by the way.
Yeah, a little closer, Bruce.
Thank you. Bruce Reardon, I direct the anti-gang operations for the City Attorney of Los Angeles, and I'm flanked by, on my right, Travis Austin, on my left, Jody Galvin, who have done with that. It takes a team of people in the office, but with a team of people have worked to write this ordinance with the City Council and the CLA. And yes, you are correct, and we had this discussion to some degree yesterday in the ad hoc committee on youth reduction and gang violence as well, that this is an alternate to incarceration. As someone put it, as Travis put it to me, if this ordinance passes, then that will create an option. Without the ordinance, the option is to pursue the matter criminally or not to pursue it at all. And that has led us to the point in the city where, as we testified in public safety, we have, and this is a pretty extraordinary number, I thought it was extraordinary, a $7 million a year cost for graffiti abatement. And yet our recovery is somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000, and that's an enormous gap that is...
Okay, wait a minute. So we're spending about $7 million as a city a year to remove graffiti, but when we look at recovering from the actual offenders, right now we're bouncing around $50,000 a year.
Correct.
So there's a tremendous imbalance of responsibility on behalf of the people who are creating this problem and us, the taxpayers, having to pay for trying to mitigate or remove the graffiti, right?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
And this is an attempt, we took this assignment from Council Members Zine and Parks, and literally from the first week we met, and all three of the people at this table were in that meeting, our goal was to take the best parts of other ordinances, in our judgment, and then share that with the council, what we thought were the best parts of ordinances and approaches in other communities, Pico Rivera, San Jacinto, the county, but adapt them to LA, which is different from those communities. The problem is bigger here, and it is, to put it in an expression, the best metaphor, like we mentioned yesterday, Los Angeles is not Mayberry, meaning that we can't simply have a graffiti problem that is then taken care of that afternoon and we move on. Oftentimes it takes as long as a year, maybe even longer, to correct a graffiti problem in a particular neighborhood, or I think of blocks of the Harbor Gateway or of your district in the Valley. It sometimes can take months and even years to correct a graffiti problem. So the option here was to, and this was something that Councilmember Parks stressed at the Public Safety Committee hearing, was to create a flexible ordinance that allows for a graduated response that starts with counseling options, to create options for counseling, for parenting classes, for community service, and goes up the list.
Now, Bruce, I need you to quantify that in round figures. You just talked about counseling, restitution, graffiti removal, community service as a punishment or a penalty, right? A combination thereof could be applied to a particular kid and or his or her parents.
Correct.
Now, all of that, what's the round figure of the taxpayer cost on the high end? Maybe 10 grand at the most? Maybe a few $1,000s?
I can't put a number on it, but it is not a high number. It is what I think what most people would consider a minimal cost, and in some cases, the individual may have to pay for it themselves, if they can.
Exactly, but my point is, even if they do all of the activity, and they get some counseling, and they actually go to a not-for-profit organization who helps them, do the graffiti removal or what have you, puts them out there and counts their hours and stuff. I happen to know, Bruce, that all of that all together is probably going to amount to maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 per case. Okay, but the alternative is, if a kid actually is put behind bars for a whole year, it's $252,000 a year. If they're put behind bars for only 3 months, that's 1/4 of that. That's still about $65,000 a year just for that person to be behind bars for 3 months as a juvenile in the state of California. The reason why I want to stress that to the taxpayers watching is, this is not a hug-a-thug, as some ignorant people want to put these programs and label them. This is about getting Americans, this is about getting people responsible for their actions. And in my opinion, that is the American way. That is the American way. Supposedly, if somebody is the CEO of a large corporation and they bilk the public, they rip off the public, they're supposed to be held accountable for their actions. I think Washington needs to fix that problem because we don't see many of them being held responsible or commensurate with their actions. But here we're talking about young people committing misdemeanor crimes, correct?
Correct.
Graffiti, etc., something that we all can't stand. It drives my blood pressure up when I see graffiti. But we're talking about actually holding the individual young person responsible and having the opportunity to pull in the parent or guardian and hold them responsible. And to the taxpayers, understand that it might cost us $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to help mitigate this instead of $252,000 by locking them up and throwing the key to the site.
Yes, and if I may, yes, to all you've just said, and if I may just briefly expand on a couple of points, the expressions that we used a lot among ourselves were accountability, responsibility, and intervention. It also provides, prosecutors don't often have a tool that allows them to intervene before custody. This is one of those tools. We need
6 minutes.
We need to work with tools that we're prosecutors. We need some specific ordinance. And then as a final note, I know that everyone knows this, but from the city attorney's office, it's use of existing resources. We haven't asked for additional positions or anything like that. We will use our resources in my unit, for example, to combat this problem as best we can, because we know from the community that this is a real problem in the city of LA.
Also, something very important that everybody needs to understand. The current system that we have that doesn't include this option of having to feel the pain, having to go out and paint the graffiti out, having to do 100 hours of community service or what have you, and be held accountable in that way. The current system is pretty black and white. They either get a slap on the wrist and they don't do any time or what have you. They don't get any penalties, as it says here, up to $25,000 in this option here. They don't get all that stuff, but the recidivism rate, which is a fancy way of saying the likelihood of that kid actually doing it again after being punished in the current system, the recidivism rate is pretty high, right? I mean, they're still likely gonna maybe feel bad for a little bit, but they'll be writing on a wall in another couple months, right? It's high likelihood that that kid is still gonna be writing on somebody's wall in a few weeks or a couple months in the current system.
And our concern is the black and white quality of the current system, which we're not criticizing, we're trying to enhance, because it's so black and white that in most cases it's just not even used.
Okay. Does this take away the current option?
No, it has no impact.
That's very important for people to understand. This is adding another piece to the menu that is more preventative and intervention style, where we're actually going to hopefully get the kid and their parents to look at this and say, young man, young woman, you got to stop doing this.
Correct.
Because I'm tired of taking, as a parent, the parents should get tired of taking up their Saturdays, cleaning up the neighborhood and wiping out graffiti from other kids or what have you. So the bottom line is, it actually holds the individual and the family responsible for that young person's actions, which is in addition to still being able to lock a kid up if the kid does something bad enough. Or if the person actually, this is their second or third or fourth time being caught, all of these other old options are still on the table, correct?
Correct. And in fact,
And Mr. Cardenas, if I could just ask you to push a button again.
Don't I get 6 minutes as the opening?
This was a Zine Smith motion, was this originally?
Yeah, but he's not here and I opened.
If you'd
I'm
like...
not arguing with you, I'm just trying to...
No. I think I did ask that question because I thought you were the maker and I looked and it said Zine, but if you want to be able to do... Say again, Mr.? He'd call that special? I didn't realize if you called special, it's not 6 minutes. That's not part of the policy. But why don't you go ahead and we'll push the button again when you're finished with this question. We'll come back to you.
So, can you hold my time? Question with City Attorney. So, what's the rule? Is it the opener gets 6 minutes or the maker of the motion gets 6 minutes? Because I was on a roll. I was like,
I know, and I would love to give you that much time, but it's maker of the motion. It's maker of the motion.
Okay, I'll push my button again.
Then, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And the answer to your question is yes, and in fact, in the process of drafting this and going through committee, we added to the bill the express language that this is separate and apart from the other criminal penalties. It exists on its own. It doesn't interfere with them at all, and it only enhances.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn, followed by Mr. Parks, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. I think we all hate graffiti. I feel the same way that Tony does. It absolutely just makes me angry when I see graffiti. We've worked really hard in the city in trying to figure out how to eradicate it within the first 24 hours, because we know that makes a big difference in terms of this ongoing communication. We know it signifies that there could be gang activity associated with it, so we all hate graffiti. It's not just someone's artistic expressions, and it damages property, and we're spending millions of dollars trying to get rid of it. What I would like you to explain to me is exactly what this ordinance does. I guess I'm asking, what's the process here? Someone is caught. First of all, that's a big if for me, but someone actually is arrested, is caught, and is convicted of this terrible crime. What happens if it's a young person? Hold my time, please.
And I will hand off the process.
Hold my time. Woo-hoo. Oh, thank you.
And thank you, Councilmember. For the record, you may recall, but I certainly do, from the first time we met, you and I, in January of 2007 when I came into the job that I now have, you may not recall, but it was in the Harbor Gateway. I'm sure you remember that. And it was a very, very serious time in the city. And you brought the graffiti up, the issue you brought, that was the first issue you brought up. I remember it very vividly because of the graffiti problems in Harvard Gateway, and you showed me the walls that were covered around the store, and we can go back, but I don't want to waste people's time, but I want that to be clear. This has been an issue that you raised literally in our first meeting, so we know you stressed the importance of this. And then before I hand it off to Travis to talk about the process very briefly, it is, I think, important to stress that the process is designed to be graduated and progressive and to give the widest variety of options to the administrative hearing process so that the options of parenting classes are actually written into the ordinance. At the high end, the option of a lien, for example, is really an option of last resort, and in our office is not an option that we see exercised very often. It is only at the last resort. So you create a series of options for the offender that hopefully directs the offender towards, breaks the cycle, so the offense doesn't happen again, because graffiti is a gateway crime. If ever there's been a gateway crime, it's graffiti. That is sadly a gateway towards gang membership. If we can intervene at the beginning, maybe we can stop that. And I think Travis Austin can briefly address the process.
Yes, Council Member, my name is Travis Austin with the City Attorney's Office. If I could just, graffiti, as we all know, I believe is a crime that has a pretty large spectrum when it comes to the type of offender who's committing this sort of crime. I want to start at the low end of the spectrum, which we would address through the administrative hearing process. The administrative hearing process, basically, we picture using this process with juveniles who don't have a record, who don't create a lot of destruction with their crime, who might throw a slap tag up on a wall or something to that extent. The administrative hearing process, when the offender is caught, they would be issued an administrative citation. From that point, the parents of the juvenile or the juvenile themselves, if they had the resources, really have four options. They could pay the administrative citation. First offense would be a $250 fine. They either pay the administrative citation, they could remedy the violation if it's possible, they could contest the citation, which would take them through the administrative hearing process where a hearing officer would hear why the citation is being contested and actually come to a decision as to whether or not the damage should be mitigated down, whether the offender would be held accountable at all. Or in lieu of paying the citation, they would be able to choose to do parenting classes or counseling classes. The step up from there would be civil. If we catch an offender and we think it's appropriate to pursue civil action against that offender, this ordinance would make that option available to us. As part of the cleanup efforts, we're asking the contractors to get an assignment of rights from the victimized property owner, which gives the rights to the city to pursue the action civilly. So the city would be standing in the shoes of the victimized property owner and have all the options that property owner would have. The next step would be criminal prosecution. We would reserve, in our judgment, reserve this option for offenders who, for instance, are committing gang graffiti or serial offenders. And from criminal prosecution standpoint, the punishments could range anywhere from misdemeanors to, which is a 6 months in custody or $1,000 fine, up to, if the district attorney's office take the case, it could be a felony. And then lastly, the nuisance abatement lien we would reserve in our judgment for really non-compliant offenders. Offenders who agree to pay the damages civilly or agree to pay an administrative fine and breach that contract and refuse to pay or refuse to follow through on the counseling.
Right. Let me, and again, I mean, I'm glad you laid that out because I'm understanding, the options that will be available to us to do this. There's a piece of it that I think, and I'm all for people taking responsibility for their crimes. I mean, I absolutely believe that as an American value, is taking responsibility. Part of what I think is a gray area is, the juvenile who is just incorrigible. The single mother, has, 4 other kids that are doing really well, go to school, get great grades, but there is that one kid that she just cannot control. He leaves the house at night when she thinks he's in bed, and he can in no way pay this $250 or $1,000 fine. She in no way can pay it. She probably thinks she's a good parent because she's got 4 other ones that are doing really well, so the option of parenting classes probably seems a bit of an insult to her. And then to put a lien, on her home as a result of this, I think that's the piece that I think some people feel is a bit harsh and maybe not appropriate in this particular situation. What other remedies are at your disposal for that scenario? A good single mother, 4 other kids doing really well, 1 incorrigible juvenile. She can't afford to pay this fine. Does she really need to go to parenting classes? What else is available for you in this situation?
Well, the ordinance gives discretion as to which remedy we're going to pursue. And I think in that particular situation, we would use our discretion as prosecutors, like we do every day in court, and look at the mitigating circumstances and decide this is not a good case to issue a nuisance abatement lien on that property. Perhaps we could work with the parent in that instance and try and provide counseling for the offender. And
if I may, and I appreciate Travis's answers very much.
I actually know some situations that this is true for.
While I know all the council members, you're put in this position often many times too. None of us can give an opinion as to how we would act in the future exactly for a case that hasn't come up yet, but we can say, and I certainly can say, that it is our position that prosecutors are only as good as their credibility. And our credibility relies on our discretion and our judgment. And if we were to pursue in the fact scenario that you've laid out, which does exist in real life, that's a real life scenario.
It is.
That is the sort of case that if we were to exercise our discretion to seek maximum penalties, I think we would lose our credibility, both in the court system as well as with this council, that would make us less effective as prosecutors the next day. So it's a long-term goal that we have to be the credible representatives of the city when we represent the people. And I'd like to add to that fact that, and that's one of the reasons we've specifically assigned this project. For instance, on my left, Jody Galvin, who is a dynamo on the issue of, an expert on the issue of graffiti. She has the assignment to help coordinate the efforts so they are consistent, so that she's already working with the county and in constant contact with them, so protocols can be designed, so this can really be implemented fairly and in a balanced manner.
And I have very little time left. I may push my button again. This all depends on catching these offenders. And my experience in 7.5 years is we're not catching them. And I have felt very frustrated. And I know law enforcement has their, they are swamped. There's not enough officers out there. And at the end of the day, it hasn't become a priority crime. And I know one neighborhood council in the Harbor Gateway area that actually took their neighborhood council money, hired some guy who was an expert on tracking this graffiti, and ended up working with law enforcement to get an arrest and a conviction. But that was like a whole extra surge of money in this one neighborhood to catch this one tagger. This is a great system, but if we're not catching these guys, how in the world do we go through this process? What can you tell me on that issue?
I'm glad, thank you for raising that, because literally that was the issue that came up in January of 2007, that very issue of how can we follow through, and that's where the thing we like best about this ordinance gets attention for a variety of reasons, but what we think is the long-term benefit, and we hope this to be the case as we come back in the future to the council, that the Jody Galvins of the world, Travis Austin, and myself, and the office, the city attorney's office, are already using this ordinance as a great tool to work with LAPD. LAPD has assigned coordinators on this. Pat Gannon, I believe, is assigned as coordinator, who is, by my accounts, an extreme can-do person. Other members of his staff are assigned to help coordinate this. And here's the final point that is critical. What this ordinance will help create, that we're all excited about, is bring us into the 21st century and have a technology database that we talked about in January 2007. Unless we can track the incidents of graffiti, there is the only prosecutions you can do unless you can track them are the person caught red-handed, and like arson, which is a crime that also is widely under-prosecuted, that doesn't happen very often. If we have the smartphone technology, graffiti is a signature, and many graffiti artists can be tracked, and in some cases, I know this sounds crazy to the general public, but it is my experience as almost 20 years as a prosecutor, a lot of times they'll take responsibility. They're proud of their work, even if in fact their work is a desecration to others. And they can be tracked using technology.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Parks. Mr. Parks?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to thank you for putting this ordinance together. And my biggest concern was whether, when it was continued, whether there were changes made that we're not aware of, and I understand that hadn't happened. Correct. One thing I'd like, if you could just give us an overview, because we gave direction in item 3, I believe 3B, to tell us some of the things that we would be thinking about on expanding and enhancing our ability to give other alternatives in addition to the fines and holding parents accountable. But what are some of the other things, particularly some of those that were identified in the county's program?
Correct, and thank you, Councilmember. And this literally came up in public safety as you worked with us to refine this ordinance. What your suggestion was, which was we thought was implicit, but what is now express or explicit in the ordinance, is that one of the alternatives that the county is using, that Ms. Galvin is already in contact with them, as you suggested, so there's no silos, people are working together, is the option of parenting classes and actually creating programs. Parenting classes is a sometimes misused term. It sounds like it's, what it really is a form of intervention and monitoring. That's right. And while there are instances, as Councilmember Hahn described, of parents who don't want it, we've actually found in our Operation Bright Future experience that there are a lot of parents who want the help, but don't know how to seek it, don't know where to seek it, or even for cultural reasons, don't feel comfortable asking for it. This gives them an opportunity to get it. And yes, it is, in a sense, punitive, because like all forms of monitoring, it is a restriction, but it is a restriction that's certainly at the lower end of the scale. And we think is in many cases, graffiti is actually an infraction, which is the lowest end of the criminal scale. We think that's a good, and it was your point, actually, I should say, and that we agreed with, that is an appropriate balance for that level of offense.
Okay. And then the other issue is the sense that as we move forward, there's some give and take and some balance as it relates to what the current plight of the parents and the victims, so that it's not a one-size-fits-all and everybody doesn't get the same penalty. And I think that's where I think people have not read the ordinance have a sense that it's going to be more enforcement and less of dealing with the intervention and things like that.
Yes, I concur that it is our opinion, that is just an opinion, that the criticism, to the extent it can even be called that, and for instance the LA Times editorial a couple of days ago, I would call constructive advice. But that constructive advice was going on in the Public Safety Committee with you and with the other members of the Public Safety Committee, in conference with Councilmember Zine as well, who was one of the sponsors of this project, and with the staff, and with LAPD. The idea is not to seek to use draconian options. It's exactly the opposite. We need, right now, graffiti is not being addressed at the level we'd all like to see it. This provides the senior lead officer, for example, the community policing arm of the LAPD that you're so familiar with, to be involved in a way that we think will be constructive for the entire neighborhood.
And also, the goal is to create a tailor-made response per incident.
Precisely. The administrative hearing process, it's been our experience at the city, and by the way, that is a very good question. Prior to coming over to the city, for example, I was unfamiliar with the city attorney's hearing process. It is a process that allows for individually tailored alternative solutions for the low-end crimes that we, with our misdemeanor jurisdiction, oftentimes face.
Okay. The other thing, just so you're aware, that on 3A, I think we made some headway during the budget process to where Clean and Green is being looked at as the primary abatement process, and they're going to be working with General Services and Rec and Park to make sure that we don't have 4 and 5 different agencies doing the abatement. And so I think we've got them at least in one room to begin to talk about how that might occur.
You know, that's great, sir. Thank you for that. I did not know that. We will follow up on that immediately, and I can also add to that, I've said it once, but it bears repeating, I believe, that Ms. Galvin, in particular, at the city attorney's direction, I believe it will be proven from day one will provide value in any meeting she's involved in, because she is very, very passionate, knowledgeable, and expert on this subject.
When you meet with Rec and Park, the one thing we need your assistance on, they have some requirements about prior criminal checks and people's access to or employment around youth at their park, and that's going to be something that's important on how Clean and Green people are vetted, that those that might do graffiti removal on Rec and Park, I think that was their biggest concern. They have some standards in the sense of quality of paint, color of paint, things like that you can work out. But there isn't a real issue about legally can people be brought in as employment or services when they're in close contact with youth. And I think that's where the city attorney could be helpful to Clean and Green to give them that kind of guidance.
Thank you, sir. We will... Again, I hope that we live up to my promise here, that if we're included in this process, as you suggest, which we would like to be, I think we'll add value to every circumstance that we're asked to attend.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Reyes, followed by Mr. Labange, Mr. Zine, Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to thank you and congratulate you on this work. It's a long time coming, and so I appreciate the accomplishments, and many of the questions I had have been already asked. The one area that I wanted to dwell on and maybe get some insight, in this trust fund, well, let me take a step back. There are some areas that we know that are chronic sites with this continuous graffiti over and over again. I think some of our bridges are being held up by the paint that we put on it. But you look at some of the walls that are next to middle schools, like Nightingale Middle School on Figueroa. We've got these walls that have been painted on since I was a kid, going back 40 years. Well, okay, 45. But the fact is, our ability to use these funds, would it allow us to move forward in a way in which, let's say an area requires a camera to enhance security. We've been painting and painting forever. No one seems to identify the taggers or those who are hitting it. It's an area where 2 or 3 gangs converge and they're constantly trying to fight for their presence there. They want their tag to be the one that stays, but because of the good work of our graffiti removal folks, maybe it lasts 4 or 5 hours, maybe it lasts 2 days. So can we use this fund to move in a direction where we can put together a system that has cameras, that is enhanced with the security in the area, whether with the school district or with the LAPD, or let's say with the sheriffs, with the rail stations. You have different jurisdictions that have police presence, break down the communication. They tend to function in silos. Everyone's overwhelmed. But if we can put these cameras where they can't be shot out, we can disguise them within the urban fabric. It might help us identify who is actually doing the tagging. Is that something we can do? And
Yes.
Please hold my time.
I apologize. Yes, sir. And in fact, I believe I'm familiar with the walk bridge that you're referring to because my colleague Arturo Martinez, I think, worked with your district to, that bridge was a perfect example of a location where graffiti was so intense that people just didn't use the bridge because it was too scary. And I mean that in the most sincere way. And that's been cleaned up, but that's one step in the right direction. We need to make that a citywide project. And the short answer to your question, knowing everyone's time is very important here, is yes. We have attempted to write an ordinance and believe, with the advice and guidance of the council, have an ordinance that provides for the fine-tuning of the response over time to target neighborhoods that need it the most. And even, as the city attorney often says, street by street, block by block, bridge by bridge, I guess we can add to that equation. And again, I only stress that Ms. Galvin has spent a year or more, really more, researching this subject, and we are dedicated to breaking down those silo barriers. And I know that those barriers have a remarkable way of growing back up. But we're aware of that too. And we'll find a way over or around them if we confront them.
So the use of the camera, can we use the funds? Let's say we want to install a camera system with the hardware and the software and find a way to staff it so that people are actually reviewing the video or however you want to, whatever technology they use. Can we use the funds for that purpose?
Councilman, if I can, the answer is yes. The technology fund that's being set up, all the proceeds, restitution, civil fines, administrative fines, should be deposited into this technology fund. The technology fund first has to make sure that the rewards program is sufficiently funded. The next priority is to make sure we have the necessary technology in identifying and apprehending offenders. Cameras would fall into that category.
Great. I look forward to working with you and coordinating and strategically placing, because it's about time for many areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Labange.
Hi. Thank you. Could I ask Paul Rax to join the table? Paul Rax, do you know Paul?
Yes.
Mr. City Attorney, yeah, I wanted Paul's testimony here, Paul.
As do we, sir. In fact, we've worked with him on this, and I just didn't realize he was behind us.
So thank you very much. Thank you. Paul, give your overview, if you would, on this. You've probably read this ordinance, probably contributed.
Yes, good morning. Paul Roch, Director of the Office of Community Beautification with the Board of Public Works. We did work very closely with the City Attorney's Office on this, have had several meetings with them, and also with several of our graffiti abatement contractors who would be actually playing a pretty high-impact role in the documenting of the graffiti locations for the database and stuff. We are in support of this effort.
Now, I would think probably right up on top of all issues would be graffiti. Maybe second or third would be the Green Line, not into the airport. But graffiti would be number one. I want to ask a question about vining. Just as it work in here, is there anything we could do to take, let's say if I'm a vandal and I vandalize something, could I be required to plant vines? Vines do grow on walls, they provide air. Hold my time if any one of those four fine professionals at this table could answer that question.
I can give the short answer to that unless Mr.
Well, OCB does have a vine planting program.
I know, but I want the
that we
city
run
attorney.
through
I
our
don't think everybody's going to be able to pay
CBOs.
for what we want to do. So I want a menu for you as the city attorney to say, okay, this family may not have the opportunity to do the fine, but also to have the work be done, to really be that you have community service. Because I understand it, if you get arrested for this and you go before a judge, the judge will ask you, you want to go to jail or do community service? And they say, I want to go to jail.
Correct.
They go to jail, and
true.
they get into jail, and they get kicked out. They see Lee Baca and then they go right out the door because there's no room in the jail. We should have mandatory community service for this. Hold my time.
The only reason yes, community service does involve the sort of greening process that you're describing, and we are aware of that, and we'll be pursuing that where we think it's appropriate. The only reason we avoided, I guess as maybe long-term prosecutors or career prosecutors, we avoided the mandatory, the use of the word mandatory to allow for more individualized. It's been my experience, it's been our experience, that we want to avoid a mandatory prejudgment ahead of time. That's the only...
Let me ask you a question. If you play football and you jump off sides, they throw the penalty and they move you back 5 yards. That's a mandatory penalty. So I think we have to get mandatory and penalized and have a variety of things. I don't want to hurt people. I want to help people. I know there's a creative force that comes from some young people who vandalize and they feel powerful doing that. There's something that we're missing in the change. There's straight out vandalism. There's gang and hostilities towards others that are in this area here. I've happened to run into, I think in my career, 4 people actually doing it right at the same time, etc. And it's hard to catch. But I also think there's a real focus here that we have to do, that there is a mandatory community service. Because even if you go into our schools, the schools get vandalized an awful lot. And I don't know, have you had any discussion with the schools on this? Hold my time.
Yeah, we have it in the school. The school system is also, the school police and the school law enforcement system is also involved in this process, and that is another silo that we'll make sure it doesn't exist. Just a short answer to your question, I'm not, absolutely not, knowing your knowledge of football, I'm not going to, point taken.
We'll go to basketball, we'll go to baseball, I'm sorry.
Point taken, and I'm not going to engage that. I'm sure I'll get it wrong. And but that said, even though the discussion has largely been over the last few minutes on one end of the scale, yes, we are also very much aware of the other end of the scale. And in fact, one of the impetus for this whole project began with some murders that have happened in the city and in the county related to people, Samaritans trying to stop graffiti who were shot or killed doing that. So we're aware of the danger that's involved here as well.
Right. Another thing, too, I'm very proud of our muralists from all of them. But when they destroy the mural, we don't touch it. Explain that, Paul. Will you hold my time?
Could you repeat the question?
On the mural. You graffiti a mural.
Yes.
Nobody touches it.
Yeah, well, if the mural has a protective coating on top of it, we can remove the graffiti without damaging the mural. The problem is some of the older, more historic murals around the city do not have those protective coatings, and our contractors are not allowed to remove the graffiti because of the damage that we would do onto those murals.
And what impact will this have on Caltrans property? Hold my time. That means on murals or graffiti on freeways. Hold my time. Do you prosecute?
No. Mr. LaBonge, I have been holding your time when it's held.
No,
so even though you've asked a couple questions in between, go ahead.
You're very kind.
The very short answer to that is the freeway system is policed from a different jurisdiction, but we'll be working with them. That's the coordination effort. It really requires coordination to get this done.
If you go to Orange County, they have a better handle on it than they have in L.A. County. Thank you so much for this here. Paul, stay at the table. Okay. You can add to, maybe comment on the success of that program. Thank you.
Mr. Zine, followed by Mr. Rosendahl, Alarcon, Cardenas, and Hahn.
Thank you. Hold my time. That's the new phrase. Every time we ask a question, hold my time. I want to congratulate you. I know you've worked hard on this. Catching the individuals. I know it's a difficult task. What we're doing in my district is getting overtime funds for the local police, teaming up with community members to stake out and catch them. The prosecution has been, shall we say, less than desirable in the past, and hopefully this ordinance will enhance that. The issue that I have is what else can we do that we haven't done that your research shows we can implement into another ordinance? You've done a lot of research, Jody. I know you've got every book and every CD on this issue.
Sure.
What kind of things can be included that we haven't included? Because when we drive down the freeways, when we drive down the streets, the city is turning into a graffiti-laden environment, and it's negative for everyone. Now, the gangbangers may like it, the taggers may like it, everyone else is frustrated with it. So what else can we put in that we haven't put in? I want the kitchen sink included in this to give every tool available to eradicate this, as other cities have been successful in eradicating. We've tolerated, we need to eradicate it. Go ahead.
That is the goal. The goal is to make, well, the goal would be to be at a point where Councilmember Labange pointed out that we are the leading edge of this, where we like to think that in other areas we set the standard. That said, this ordinance already has started a process, as I mentioned before, but I want to underline, we met with Chief Moore, for example, in the Valley on Friday. His focus is laser-like on this problem, too, as far as I can tell. Right. And he knows, like we know, that the process that's before us now is taking this to the next level. This can't just be an ordinance. Jody Galvin can't just be a coordinator who's going to meetings. This has to be something real. And we need, and that's the importance of having LAPD assign it to certain ownership with certain members of the command staff, just as we have. It has to be owned by certain individuals. People do count. They make a difference. And when it's assigned to certain people, things get done. I would suggest, if we may, we have a lot of ideas, Council Member, perhaps a report back to you in 30 days or some short amount of time. I don't want to waste anyone's time, but we have other ideas. We think this ordinance, for what it is complete unto itself, but we do have other ideas we'd be happy to share with you in a report form, or however you'd like.
Well, I'd like to get it back. I know in New York, Rudy Giuliani cleaned up New York with graffiti that was all over the city. It can be done, but it needs a concentrated effort by all the agencies involved. It was done in New York. It was out of control. They brought it into compliance, which was what we need to do. You drive down any freeway in this region, and it's outrageous what it's become. So I'd like a report back in 30, 60 days, whatever works, whatever components. I know we're looking at state-of-the-art technology to add to the component, the video cameras, etc. And I know how difficult it is to catch these people. I've caught a few myself driving down the road, but it's instantaneous. They're hit it and they're gone. And fortunately, some get apprehended, but not enough.
Yes, we'll report back to you. We'll work with your staff to come up with an appropriate amount of time to be as complete a report as possible. And I'd only add, and this, I know how active you are in the community, Councilmember Labange, all the council members are, but for the public that may be listening, we do suggest that they don't intervene in graffiti unless they have your background or the knowledge of dealing with people that you have. In general, we suggest that people don't intervene. But that said, there was a concern in the community in the past, well, if I don't intervene, no one will. That we want to change.
Well, I know the police department does probation searches, the sheriff's department probation searches for a lot of these individuals to get apprehended. We don't want anyone to risk their safety, but the fact is there is a $1,000 reward for people who do help in that apprehension. A couple other items. Possession of the spray paint under a certain age. Do we have a law that says under a certain age you cannot possess spray paint?
I think we do. I'm just checking. I want to make sure I get this right. I think we do, yeah. I believe that we do have.
If we don't, we need to put that on the books.
Put that on our report.
And I went to this little yogurt shop on 2nd Street yesterday, and I'm walking back. There's a store that's adjacent to the old New Otani, which is now named something else, that they sell spray paint. They don't have a whole lot of items in the store. They're selling strictly spray paint. And I'm looking at the color of spray paint, and I'm saying, this is what I'm seeing on the freeways. We need to do some ordinance. I know the ordinance says you have to lock it up. But if that's all they're selling is spray paint, maybe we need to do something in an ordinance to say, you've got to sell something other than spray paint. Because looking at the tags that were in this particular store, I'm looking at this saying, this is the direct connection of what we're seeing in the community, destroying the community. So whatever ordinance we can implement to decide, I'd like to outlaw spray paint altogether. I don't know if that's feasible, but locking it up doesn't seem to work. If we need to enhance that somehow, we also talked about adding a fee, a user fee that could be used for a fund that we could use to help clean the area for the surveillance, for the law enforcement purposes, like we have the recovery fee of e-waste, we have recovery fee for soda pop, etc. Maybe something in that line to add to the funds. You buy a can of spray paint, there's a fee involved that we can use. If we can look into that also on that report back. But we need to do something to give the law enforcement the tools and the financial support so they can be effective in what we're trying to do. And if we don't do it now, we're never going to do it. So we have the comprehensive package. That's why I asked if there's anything else we can add to it. If you can respond to that.
Thank you, Councilmember. In fact, we believe that there's some statewide legislation on the spray paint issue. Thank you for all your thoughts. I mean, you may have noticed I was taking notes. I am, as I've said before, an inveterate note taker, and we actually go back and look at these notes, and that'll be part of our response. We'll focus, among other things, on spray paint and getting back to you. But there is, we believe, some pending legislation that I think Councilmember Weezer has been instrumental in the state right now on the spray can issue. We'll get back and report to you on that immediately. Just we need some time to pull it up and get it to you.
How about the recovery, the user fee?
Yeah, all of that we'll get back to you on. I mean, I think they're all, every idea that you've brought up is an idea
Because yesterday we approved 25 cent for, if you take a plastic bag from the supermarket, you're going to pay a 25 cent, which is a state law. If we could do something like that with spray cans, obviously that would help fund the programs that we need to fund, not only the recovery, the rewards, et cetera. And Councilmember Jose Weezer in my district, the whole city's plagued with this problem. It's not just one area, it's the whole city. So whatever we can do to throw in that pot.
Councilmember, it may seem odd for me to say this, but it is the truth. All of the council members' remarks, we encourage so much because we want to respond on this. We will get back to you. Literally, our conversation with Chief Moore, Pat Gannon at the LAPD, the various command staff last week was, let's take this to the next phase. If the ordinance passes in the good graces of the City Council, and we hope that it does. If it does, let's take it to the next phase. And part of that next phase will be enforcement, implementation, but also further research and studies for more useful ideas. And if I can add one thing, I want to be really clear to the public on this. We really encourage the tips, if people see what they believe is vandalism going on, do something, but report it. That is our advice. We want the information. We just don't, unless someone is trained in law enforcement, we just don't want them to risk their lives over these subjects. And sadly, with some individuals who spray paint, you may be threatening your life by intervening.
And there's oftentimes a picture. You can take a photograph with your cell phone, with a camera, utilize that to the police. They can track that individual. I know some people have done that, and claim the reward. They haven't encountered the person, but they've taken a photograph. So whatever means possible, we need to reduce that. And I commend you also, the City Attorney's Office, for working diligently on this, bringing this to fruition. Hopefully we'll get this passed and continue on that path to eradicate it from the City of the Angels.
And thank you. We also want to pass on that. We'll pass on that thanks to the City Attorney, who really made this possible. He's at his direction.
And also, I think we have a state legislator that's working with us on this also.
Yes. Quite a few state legislators are very interested in this subject. Quite a few.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rosendahl, followed by Mr. Alarcon, Weezer, Cardenas, Hahn.
Thank you, Madam President. When Ms. Hahn talked about the single mother and the 4 kids, I just want to deal with a couple of reality checks. First, tell me what this ordinance would do again, the 4 points that you said, the $250 fine, the this, that. Let's hear it again.
Sure, Council Member. Really, it provides the city with the following options. The administrative hearing option, the civil action, civil lawsuit against the offender, and the criminal filing, criminal prosecution, and then the nuisance abatement lien. The administrative citation, administrative hearing process provides the offender with four options. One, they pay the administrative citation.
Which is $250, did I hear that?
It would be $250 for a first offense, $500 for a second, $1,000 for a third. They could contest the citation. And if they contest the citation, then they go through the administrative hearing process where an administrative hearing officer would decide whether or not the offense actually occurred. The third is they could remedy the violation if that option is still available. And the fourth would be to, in lieu of any administrative citation, pursue counseling or parenting classes.
Okay. How are the police going to enforce this when they got enough other things to deal with that are a higher priority than graffiti?
Well, that is, I guess maybe I'm out of date, but that's the $64,000 question. Maybe it's more a higher price now, $1 million question. That's why, one of the reasons this ordinance took some time to draft was not just the drafting process, but was the process of, we asked the same question. if, at least, we're career prosecutors, all three of us at the table, and Mr. Roch is a careerist in his field. But as career prosecutors, we know that you should not try and put a square peg in a round hole. If our investigators in the field, the police, and other agencies are not geared up to do the job, then we won't have cases to follow up on. That is, I can say that, and perhaps in another appearance we can actually bring a representative of LAPD with us. I know for a fact, because I have been so told, that LAPD has assigned this, as I say, to their Detectives Bureau. They've given ownership to Commander Gannon. He has already assigned, at least down to the lieutenant level, a lieutenant who is going to take ownership of this project. And then Ms. Galvin, in particular, has worked with a number of... This is what I'm trying to say. Excuse me for the wind-up. It surprised us, but we were gratified to know that actually there were a lot of people, a lot of investigators at LAPD that were chomping at the bit to get after this subject but needed the direction. And we think we have that. That's not to say that the other work that everyone else does isn't tremendously important, but there was, in many cases, more important. But there are people who really are focused on this exactly as you are. And unless there is a team, we would rather have a small, capable team assigned than a big, amorphous solution that's up in the air. We think a small, focused team can do a lot of good, and that team is coming together.
Now, the parents' responsibility on this, if they're 18 or older, then it isn't the parent. When do the parents relinquish that responsibility?
Once the offender turns 18.
Once the offender turns 18. Okay, and who else is doing this around the country?
Well, that is a variety of different jurisdictions. I mean, but in the last year or two, as Ms. Galvin in particular, as Councilmember Zine said, has pulled together literally all the research. And other people are doing this as well. The mayor's office, we're working with them as well. There are other, Arif Allah Khan's group in the mayor's office is focused on this as well. There are, for instance, there are smaller communities like Pico Rivera and San Jacinto, correct? And that are working. It's actually something that she's saying, internationally this is a problem, but what we noticed and want to make sure is different in the city of LA is that in some smaller communities they can implement this pretty easily. I use that term advisedly because the community is so small. In Los Angeles, such a big city and so diverse, we want to be, however, the leading edge on how this is implemented in a big city. We know we're not that now, but we want to get there. And we are in consultation with other jurisdictions locally, like the county, other jurisdictions in the state, and Ms. Galvin is even in consultation with jurisdictions in the UK and in Europe, because this is sadly, in big cities and small, a problem that is universal.
And getting the word out, will Jeff Carr and the entire gang prevention intervention / zoning areas be given a simple sheet of paper that can be distributed to community groups? People don't understand anything unless you make it simple. And you need to come back with a very simple one-pager that goes to everybody so that parents especially know that there's another responsibility on their shoulders regarding their children. Obviously, from our perspective, this is another tool in our toolbox to deal with the broken window theory. Obviously, nobody wants the graffiti because it's a sign of gang presence. It's a sign of we don't have control of our neighborhood, besides the obvious visual blight it creates for all of us. But we need a simple paper on this that gets widely distributed. Because as Ms. Hahn said, what about that mother who has no control over that kid? What is going to happen to her if she gets hit up with fines from that kid out there in the middle of the night playing in this gang and drug war and all that kind of insanity? And she's not, I've been trying to control that guy. We have to have some recourse, too, for people like that. How do you address that issue?
A great question, and it is two ways. One, I think Council Members Cardenas and Hahn and Reyes in particular will know that we're trying We're doing, over the last couple of years, trying to do the same thing with our gang injunction removal process, creating pamphlets, one-sheets, and blanketing the city. We have the same plan here. The first responsibility of a prosecutor, I suppose, is public interest and public safety. Public safety. But to get there, we need to have as much transparency as possible so that people know what we're doing and why. And in fact, we do have a pamphlet that we will bring to your office later in the day or tomorrow. And many times, maybe, council member, we don't want to be a bother to all the stuff you have to do. But if you have some ideas or input on improving it, I can fairly much guarantee that'll be done.
Because I can tell you that my Venice Neighborhood Council, for instance, that deals with the area of Oakwood, and my Del Rey Neighborhood Council that deals with issues around the Mar Vista Gardens area, and there are other groups that are very active in this. We have a lot of police support groups and booster groups and so on and so forth. I would love to have a simple brochure out of this that we could distribute to my neighborhood councils, distribute to our homeowner groups, distribute to the Boys and Girls Clubs, and all of the other groups that do outreach. The school system, as Mr. Labange said, how about the school? What's the relationship going to be with the schools with this ordinance?
And to answer your first question, I think we have it on the pamphlet, and because Ms. Galvin was involved in it, it's a lot better than it would have been if I had done it, I can tell you that. But still, I believe that the council members who've worked with us on the removal petition process will confirm that we really want your input because you know your communities, and if there's language that I, as a lawyer, am using in a pamphlet that, frankly, no one else can understand, point it out to us, and we'll fix it. That's number one. Number two, and we'll get you that information by the end of the week or tomorrow. Number two, on the schools, it is the thing I have learned more than anything else, the lesson I have learned more than anything else about gangs in the last 2.5 years, and I thought I knew a lot about them, but I know a lot more now, and there's a lot more to learn, is gangs or gang membership thrive where the schools are either failing or where there's high truancy or high dropout rates. So we are in every way trying to engage with the school police, and they are part of this. But, I think your comments, at least for me, underline the need to make sure that they're included at every step of the way.
Well, let me suggest this, and it would be very simple to do this. Your simple brochure that tells you what this new law is and what the responsibilities are should be distributed through the school system to the kids, so the kids get it handed out in the class, they have it, and then they can bring it home to their parents. When the kid gets that in his hand and knows that this is something real, it will have a huge impact. So I suggest we do that.
We can and we will.
Good, great. Well, thank you so much for everything here, and I look forward to us working together on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, I'm finished.
Mr. Alarcon, followed by Mr. Weissar.
This is a good program, long time coming. You have my full support. Let me know how we can help.
We will, sir. Thank you. And we very much appreciate, we know your district is a district that is always actively involved in our process, so thank you.
That was it? Thank you. Mr. Weissar.
Thank you. Well, I just, first of all, I want to just thank everyone who's worked on this. This is a very important item in the city of Los Angeles. As you know, when I talk to my constituents, one of the first things they talk about is the beautification in the community. They look up at the graffiti, so this certainly hits at the core of what our residents want to see the city council addressing. So thank you for your hard work. Thank you. And just to address an item that Mr. Zine brought up, yes, we introduced an idea to Senator Carol Liu to change a state law that would allow local jurisdictions to tax the spray paints and felt tip markers at a higher level than it is now, so that we could realize additional revenue and be able to use that funding to take down more graffiti. I understand as well that a lot of cities actually don't even implement this authority they get from the state because it is not fiscally prudent for them to do so, since it costs them a lot more administratively to collect the current tax that's allowed to be taxed right now. So that bill has recently passed committee and Senate, and it's going to go through one other committee. We're working right now to make sure that we have the support, but I think that will allow us to realize additional revenue here locally once it passes. And I think that's one piece of the larger piece as we work to get a more comprehensive plan to address graffiti in the city of Los Angeles. Secondly, I also introduced a motion that's in Budget and Finance right now that we will hopefully ask to allow us to use some of the funding in the Graffiti Technology and Recovery Fund to restore and preserve murals. A lot of times, our beautiful murals in the city, we put graffiti on them, and it costs more than just going up and painting them away. And a lot of our great graffitis are lost because an owner of that great mural would much rather just get rid of it and not have to deal with hiring an artist to go back and repaint that again. So that is pending in Budget and Finance, and hopefully we could use some funding to preserve some of our murals in town. There was a day when if you painted a religious mural on a wall, when you painted something that showed some respect and some pride in the local neighborhood where you were, that it was respected. But nowadays, you know very well, you go through some of these murals, and our young kids now, I never thought I'd say this, I sound so old now, but our young kids now, our young gang members have no respect for those murals, and so hopefully we get more funding to be able to preserve some of our murals in our neighborhood. So thank you for your hard work. I don't know if you have any comment on that.
Two brief comments.
Please hold my time.
On the first one, by the way, thank you. Very fortuitous that you were here to describe that statewide legislation. And although, because of the constraints I have as a career prosecutor, if there's anything you need from our office in terms of support, I will pass that message along to our legislative team as soon as we leave, and they'll contact your staff if there's anything you need.
Great, thank you.
That I'll pass on. The second part we'll take under consideration because we do know, like Mr. LaBonge knows football, and I know that your reputation has preceded you on the stress of the beautification of these murals. I know now that the mural is part of the culture of Los Angeles and Southern California, and their being kept safe and clean is really a cultural responsibility.
Great, thanks so much. And Madam Chair, Madam President, did we have a public hearing on this item today?
Yes, we did.
We did? So
in committee, yes.
There was another card submitted by someone in the public. I'm wondering if we could accept that card after the conversation. If possible, we can open up public hearing one more time, if possible.
I have one card here.
Yeah. Is it possible to open up public hearing again?
Mr. Shapiro?
Mr. Herman?
Mr. Shapiro.
Oh, Mr. Shapiro. I thought it was Mr. Herman. Okay.
Is Mr. Shapiro still here? Leonard Shapiro?
After the discussion here, we could open up public comment again, please.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Shapiro, in just a second, once the council members have spoken, I will call you back to the lectern on item 9. Ms. Hahn, you're next, and then Mr. Cardenas will be our last speaker.
Thank you. And I haven't really investigated the idea of taxing, markers and spray paint cans. I do know that I have a huge artist community, particularly in San Pedro, who I think would voice some sort of objection that we would really be punishing, the legitimate artists who actually those are the tools of their trade. And it's unfortunately they've been hijacked by criminals, but I have a feeling that they would say they're the least represented members of our community sometime and probably the least able to afford that kind of a tax. But I'm being open-minded. I'm just speaking up for my artists in San Pedro. Let me just read you the last paragraph of the LA Times editorial on this. The city ordinance deserves passage, but not before tweaking it to make sure it is fairly applied. For one thing, the provision allowing liens against property for restitution would make the measure more punitive towards homeowners than towards other uncaring parents. Most important are standards for imposing fines so that hardworking parents who fight a losing battle every day against gang-ruled neighborhoods and disorderly schools are not unfairly held to account. The best option, put taggers on a heavy schedule of graffiti scrubbing around the city until they have worked off any fines. Could you just comment on, briefly, the idea of liens on a home which I have a problem with, but I think you're going to tell me that is part of your menu, but not necessarily always imposed. And the idea of shouldn't we just make them all scrub off the graffiti as the restitution?
Thank you, Councilmember.
And does this ordinance need to be tweaked?
We don't believe so. We read that editorial with interest. Frankly, again, we thank the LA Times for bringing this issue to people's attention because, as you have said, as Councilmember Rosendahl and others have said, we need to get the message out or else something like this becomes ineffective. That said, yes, I want to underline that while, again, it is a prosecutor's mandate not to express an opinion about a case until it comes up, in general, what's written in that last paragraph is written into the ordinance. The ordinance provides for all that flexibility, and it is our experience, the collective experience of the three of us, which frankly is a lot longer than we all want to admit. And I'm not going to put Ms. Galvin on the spot for her experience, despite her youthful appearance. She's a very experienced prosecutor, as is Travis Austin, and we have a collective experience as career prosecutors that the liens that are referred to in that editorial are literally the last resort. They are used very infrequently. When there is a severe breach that we can prove in court to a judge's satisfaction is so severe that that kind of extraordinary remedy is needed. So we have a lot of confidence that that standard will not change. But instead, there will be a flexible application, and we now can also say that we know it's the beauty of this process today is that we have a much stronger, I certainly have a much stronger knowledge as to what the council's views are so that we can help implement that in the administrative hearing process.
And for the actual tagger being sentenced to scrub off graffiti, so that is one option for restitution.
Yes.
And it may very well be applied.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I'm willing to vote for this. Again, I think graffiti is one of the worst criminal acts going on. It is a blight to every single neighborhood, and it really ruins the quality of life for everyone, from young kids walking to school to the business owners who work hard to make ends meet and then come out in the morning and see their buildings damaged. So this is hopefully one more way that we can address this problem, but someday it would be so wonderful to live in a graffiti-free city. Good luck.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Mr. Cardenas.
I think that you articulated that very well, Bruce, that unless we advertise this, it really is a deterrent. Nobody wants to be working in the community, doing 100 hours or whatever of community service, whether you're 14 years old or you're 44 years old or what have you. So this truly is the kind of law that should get people's attention, and people should start paying more attention to their activities and their children's activities. So with that, on that note, my staff just texted me from the Valley and said, you know what, we got to make sure that the city attorney's office and the DA or whoever's going to apply this, that they go out and make sure that they somehow get the attention of the school administration, the teachers, the parents, and the kids to let them know, you're not going to want this to apply to you. It's embarrassing. It's not fun. You're probably going to get your ear pulled by your parents when they, every day that they wake you up on Saturday morning to go work out in the community and take out graffiti or pull weeds or whatever the thing that you have to do. So this is exactly the kind of law that deserves and needs to have public exposure. And as I'm sitting here, I'm trying to think of something nifty and cute to say so that the press will pick it up and do another article tomorrow, but I can't think of something. Maybe graffiti, you're going down, I don't know. But unfortunately, all too often, this is the exact kind of thing that I think the press should really do a nice article on and talk about some of the details of this and how it should apply, etc. They've already done articles today, but I wish they would do more and more. I wish we had a bunch of cameras where Channel 7 and 2 and all the media were covering it as well, but it doesn't look like it. So it's going to be left up to the city attorney's office to do the men and women work to get out to the community and make sure that as many people understand this and realize that this may apply to them and they need to pay attention.
Well, thank you, sir. I mean, and on that, I truly can say that we can and that we will. And we will put our full efforts behind that, just as we have with the ad hoc committee on getting the message out, and we're still putting that. even we're doubling the effort on the removal petition for gang injunctions. We will get this message out. Ms. Galvin is, this inspires us more to get to the schools even more than we have. She's already in contact with youth leadership, with the school system, with the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. The message we're trying to get out, and maybe there's a better way to put it, but the message we want to get out, and we have a Safe Schools division within the City Attorney's Office that literally we will reach out to this afternoon, as well as to my chief. But the message is, graffiti's not cool. Graffiti is not a cool thing. It is, in fact, you're just hurting someone else's property. How would you like someone to do it to you? And
graffiti is not cool, and pulling weeds every Saturday or what have you in front of all your friends is not cool either. And so, tongue-in-cheek, what I'm going to do to try to get the press's attention, Ray Cortines, you say you're a man of the people. You're the superintendent of 700,000 kids. You need to make sure that you cooperate with the city attorney's office. You need to let them in your schools. You need to make sure that this message goes out. And shame on you, Ray Cortines, if you don't do that.
I second that. Thank you. Okay, Tom Labange wants to second that?
I just want to say I love the superintendent. I know he's trying to do a tough job, and I appreciate your passion, Tony, but I just want to say I love the superintendent and what he's trying to do.
I think you love everyone, Mr. Labange. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Cardenas.
Tongue-in-cheek. I said I was kidding. Okay? But now people who weren't paying attention are thinking that I did it to attack him. I was doing it tongue-in-cheek just to try to, get people to understand how important this is. I like Ray Cortines too. I was doing it tongue-in-cheek for the record. I said that. Tom, you must have missed that part.
Thank you. Okay. Good time to end that. Thank you. Now we have two speakers, Mr. Zuma Dog in the San Fernando Valley, and then Mr. Leonard Shapiro.
Why do you only like him to Tom Love?
Say shame on Roy Cortines too, and I'm not kidding. No, I'm kidding. And also Leonard Shapiro, all I've heard my entire Gadfly career is, there's this original guy, Leonard Shapiro, he's the original Zuma Dog. I could see why. I'm sure so many people are happy. Now regarding graffiti, and please, I wasn't paying attention because we didn't have cards in, but I do believe that graffiti is going to be the number one problem the city's going to be powerless over. So frustrating. I really think you could, help reduce the murder rate more easily than you're going to be able to prevent graffiti. And I don't want the business owners to have to pay for it. I think the solution is going to have to be, just like you spend money to have parking enforcement out there, trash removal, bulky item fees, you're just going to have the crew of people who go around the city every day at 6 in the morning and do it. You probably talked about taxes. You probably have to do something. You're not going to be able to tax the graffiti cans. You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to prevent it through taxing and through these laws you're trying to pass. I've spoken with some of these people. First of all, right away go, they passed a new law, on the markers and cans. Oh, big deal, Zuma Dog. I get my stuff from Canada on the internet, much cheaper. So that's a problem. I happen to have heard that things like the Venice walls and some of the legitimate walls that around the city that they don't have anymore. Now, of course, that's not going to stop the hardcore stuff, but it does help a little bit. And beyond that, for once in the 3-year career of Zuma Dog, I am completely... There's no answer. I like to come up with the answer for everything. This does not compute. This does not compute. Very screwed with graffiti. Nothing that you can do. Cannot tax your way out of it. All I can say is legitimize it, embrace it. It's the new Picassos and Chagalls. It's the art form of this generation, and you just have to see it as such. Start to embrace them, use them for commercial projects. There's nothing more beautiful, nothing more creative, and beyond
Thank you very much.
we're screwed.
All right, thank you. Leonard Shapiro is our next speaker.
I'm a little confused. Am I up now?
Yes, you are, Mr. Shapiro.
This is Leonard Shapiro, and I haven't been here in quite a while. So when I heard you people talking, it made me impressed me. I'm learning what bureaucrats are. Bureaucrats love to talk and they love to do nothing. Now, you heard Janice Hahn speak, and she's given you one specific instance where something happened, and she wants to do something about it there. So instead of doing something about it, you sit here and you talk for an hour and a half. Why are you talking so much about something that doesn't need any more talking? We understand what graffiti is. We understand how bad graffiti is. We understand the bad things that graffiti does, and we know sometimes some people are getting involved in it and they get hurt. But the point is, we got to do something and we got to stop talking about it. Why are you talking so much about this?
Thank you. That closes our public comment. Mr. Zine, I believe you pressed your button. He will be our final person in the queue.
I just want to know where people can obtain these posters that wish to help publish the $1,000 reward.
Community Beautification, City Hall, room 356. We have them available for anybody that might wish to display them.
Room 356?
City Hall.
Thank you. And no charge for the posters?
Absolutely no charge.
Great, thank you.
You can call 311. If people would like them mailed to them, we can mail them out. Yes.
All right, thank you. Great poster. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Madam
much.
President.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Now, let's please open the roll on that item. Do we have to open the roll, close the roll? Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item.
Next item is item 21, and that was called special for cards.
All right, Mr. Arnold Sachs, why don't you come on up? Mr. Sachs. Following Mr. Sachs will be Dr. Clyde Williams. Okay, Mr. Sachs, your time's running.
Again, good afternoon. Thank you. Arnold Sachs. Again, the City Council is acting on the Mid-City Exposition Light Rail Line Lighting District. As on Friday, they acted. Only on that Friday, and unfortunately, Mr. Parks, Councilman Parks has left the room, so he won't be able to correct me. They acted on the Mid-City Exposition Light Rail Transit Project. And I appreciate the fact that he corrected me for at least the 12th time, as I believe I'm quoting him. But he corrected the messenger, and he did not correct the message. My message is, the line has been the Exposition Light Rail Transit Project since its inception. Only in City Council is it called the Mid-City Exposition Line. Now, I know they're both the same. They just have different names. That's why they're the same. The person just asked, why does City Council spend so much time talking? Because that's what they do. You want action? They're shoplifting right in front of you, public. They create these situations. They call these items the same thing, but they're different.
Madam President, he's not speaking on this item.
All right, Mr. Sachs, you'll have to hold his time. Mr. Sachs, you've heard the admonition from the city attorney. Can you please stay on topic?
My time wasn't held, Madam Chair.
Please roll the time.
I am staying on the topic of the language of the item, which is the Mid-City Lighting District. According to the authorization and the instigation of the Mid-City Project, or the Exposition Project, Mid-City was never a part of it.
Thank you very much,
Here in
Mr.
City
Sachs.
Council.
Thank you. Your time is up. Mr. Williams, Dr. Williams, it's your turn.
I don't remember, I did not submit a card on 21. 25, yes. Or 27.
I'm sorry, it must have been put in the wrong slot then, I'm sorry. Okay, great. All right, let's, okay, great. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item.
And that order goes over for 1 week. Next item is item 24.
Item 24, Zuma Dog in the San Fernando Valley. Mr. Zuma Dog in the San Fernando Valley. He has a card in on that one. Mr. Zuma Dog, you have 1 minute left. I think we're having some technical difficulties getting out to the valley. Okay, they say Mr. Zumadog has left. All right, so Mr. Oh, he's back. Okay, great. Mr. Dog is here. 1 minute left, Mr. Dog?
No, I got more than that. I think you...
No, the city attorney has indicated you have 1 minute left. City clerk has said you have 1 minute left for today.
Okay, no, thank you. I trust that. So right now we're talking about pension. We're talking about retired employees. Let me just say this means pension. Let me just say that the pension crisis that the city confronts is much worse than the actual budget itself. With this money, and now we're talking about Blue Shield California workers and their retirement and pension money, and of course I'm for the workers and the people and their promised pensions and lifetime retirement and all this, but I'm here to say, in the remaining 30 seconds, the pension crisis is way worse than the budget crisis. We've lost $7 billion. I haven't even looked into the MTA yet with Antonio on that board, and now this. And I'm not being accusatory here. I'm simply really saying, people, I don't know what you do as council to address this, but the pension money is bankrupting the city. By 2013, we will be bankrupt, if not before then.
His comments are not pertinent to this
Hold his
item.
time, please.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you for holding the time, which is not held. But, Dion, I hope you're replaced by my friend Newt, because you don't know anything about law.
Thank you very much. Mr. Parks. Mr. Parks, you're our speaker in the queue.
Thank you, Madam President. I just would like to ask, and we don't need the staff to come up, but as you know, during the budget hearings, we had a lot of conversation about medical plans, particularly how they impact the issue of retirement. And I just asked DWP during this year, as the CAO begins to work with Personnel Department and looking at issues to save money on medical costs, that they be a part of that discussion, so when we renew this contract within a year, they can get the benefit of all of the discussion from personnel and CAO and be a part of that group that where the city hopefully saves money as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. There are no further speakers in the queue, so Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll on that item? Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item.
Next item is 25, and that was called special for cards.
Okay, Dr. Williams, you're up. And Mr. Sachs, you also have a card on this item, so why don't you start coming forward now, so you can be ready to speak after Dr. Williams is done, and then we will go to the San Fernando Valley for Mr. Zumadog. So he's done. I'm sorry. Mr. Dog is done for the day. So, Dr. Williams, and then Mr. Sachs.
Okay. Special events. The neighborhood councils often hold many special events. It doesn't seem quite right to have special events that will cost about, if you took today's events, $6.75 million if you extrapolated that throughout the year. So the neighborhood councils can provide this service much better and provide the community impact statements, which are never given for these items, although they impact the community. They can be done within the neighborhood councils. I'd still highly recommend that you take these special events monies and assign them to the neighborhood councils as part of their budget. Thank you.
Mr. Arnold Sachs.
An upcoming special event that will cost the public a ton of money, the LA Marathon. It's going to be held on Memorial Day. Registration is at 10,000 runners, half the amount from previous races. Where will the charities that get their fees from this race get the funds that they normally come from? Maybe Councilman Parks can help to correct.
Madam President, this specific special event is not on this agenda.
Mr. Sachs, again,
My time is running, Madam President.
Okay, you're talking, Mr. Sachs, so why don't you stay on topic, as the city attorney has suggested. Thank you very much.
My time has run when the city attorney was talking. I couldn't be talking when the city attorney was, so I'm penalized. It's a special event. Maybe the city attorney can correct the language in the motion that was presented by the council regarding the change of date from Sunday to Memorial Day. Geez, I don't remember that ever happening. I remember it happening.
President, his comments are still impertinent to this item.
City attorney.
Thank you very much. There's no speakers in the queue on this item. Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll? Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item.
Next item is 28, call special for cards.
All right. Mr. Dog has used his time for today. So there, item 28, no more cards in there. That's it. So there are no speakers in the queue. Please open the roll on that. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
All right, next item.
Item 29 also has cards.
All right, I'm going to call out the names of the folks who filled out cards. Mr. Saul Rice, Mr. David Karendian, Mr. Stephen Justice. Those are the cards that I have here in the box. And
Councilman Huizar, I believe, has a...
Mr. Huizar can speak into the mic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam President, I would like to continue this item for a week and allow the parties to get together and discuss their some items here.
President, my understanding is final maps can only be continued one day.
One day.
Under the subdivision map
Okay,
act.
can we continue
requirements.
to Friday?
Mr. City Attorney, then does that council?
One meeting.
One meeting, okay.
So we could continue this item till Friday, and I know some of the speakers won't have to speak on this item, knowing that it'd be continued till Friday. So if you could reread the cards, and if they choose to speak, it's on them.
All right, well, just for the matter of record, the people who filled out cards today, Saul Rice, David Karendian, Stephen Justice, and Mr. Dog, who's used up his time for today. All right, so we will continue this matter until the next meeting at the request of Councilmember Jose Huizar. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we need to vote on the continuance?
No, council can do unanimous vote if it wishes.
Okay, great. Next item, then.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those motions are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Council member Zine requests to be excused Friday, July 10th for city business that meets council policy.
All right, Mr. Zine Mr. Zine is confused. Mr. Zine is excused.
And Councilmember Labange requests to be excused July 28th, 29th, 31st, and August 4th. Those are all for city business, and they all meet council policy.
Ms. Hahn moves, and council members excused.
And that clears the desk.
All right, members, are there any announcements? Any announcements? All right, great. Would all of you please rise for... before we go forward, Madam Clerk, just to clarify, item 23, did that go forthwith?
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you very much. Please rise for adjourning motions. Members, are there any adjourning motions? All right. On this side of the room, any adjourning? Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd ask that we adjourn in memory of Karen DeFore Latif. She's a sister of our city treasurer, Joya. Karen was born on April 26, 1957 in El Paso, Texas, and she passed away on May 19th. She's a graduate of Marquette University, where she served as the Dean of Pledge, and her sorority was the Delta Sigma Theta. She was a longtime employee of the Fulton County, Georgia School District, where she served as a mentor for at-risk young girls through a program she founded called Ladies of Distinction. She's survived by her son, her parents, granddaughter, and many other relatives, including Joya. Her family and many friends will miss her because of her laughter, her quick wit and selflessness, and one of her favorite expressions, I am my daddy's child. They know that now she enjoys a front row seat in the gospel music she loved. Services will be in Atlanta, Georgia. We ask for all members on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. All members will go on
I'd
that.
also like to ask us to adjourn in memory of Alicia White, who passed away Thursday, May 14th. Alicia worked at the Vera Davis McClendon YFC, and she joined the city and CDD in November 2000 as a project assistant for the Venice YFC. Her previous work experience was as a nurse's aide. At the Venice Center, Alicia managed the front office, welcomed guests, coordinated activities, seeking resources, and supervising volunteers. In recent years, her health began to fail, and she's been on a leave of absence the past year. Her funeral service will be held Saturday, May 23rd, 11 a.m. at Lewis Metropolitan CME Church, located at 4900 Western Avenue. Repass will follow after the church services at the Calvary Baptist Church, 4911 West 59th Street, which is near Slauson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. Any other adjourning motions? Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam President. Cy Frumkin passed away May 15th. Cy Frumkin, a survivor, Dachau, and a Los Angeles textile manufacturer who founded the Southern California Council for Soviet Jews in 1968, died Friday of cancer at Providence Tarzana Medical Center. He was 78 years of age. He was born Simas Frumkis in now what is Lithuania on November 5th, 1930, to a family of affluent and assimilating Jews who were not actively religious. After studying in Switzerland and England, went to Venezuela in 1948. In 1949, he was admitted to New York University, graduated in 1953, then moved to California to work at a textile firm whose presidency he assumed in 1965. In 1964, he earned a master's degree in history by taking night courses at UC Northridge. In Los Angeles, Frumkin worked closely with Zev Yaroslavsky, who was Southern California Council of Soviet Jews Executive Director for 5 years and who headed the Southern California Students for Soviet Jews before being elected to LA City Council in 1995 and subsequent to the LA Board of Supervisors. He was a member of the Board of Directors of the Union of Council of Soviet Jews, had been appointed to the LA City Human Relations Commission in 1993 and in 2002 to Los Angeles County Employees Retirement Board. Devoted his time to public service, lecturing, writing, and whatever else that had to be done. Deeply missed by his family and friends, survived by his wife, Ella, son Michael, 2 grandchildren. May he rest in peace. Cy Frumkin.
I think we should add all members. He was a very significant person in our city's history, and he had a business in downtown Los Angeles for several years. And I remember I have heard Supervisor speak about him, and when I worked in an area that represented the neighborhood where he lived, encountered him on many occasions, and he was quite a memorable person.
I'd met him a number of times, and he had an interesting life, and he was always a man who gave back to the community. Right. He was a champion.
So that'll be all members. Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. All right, that'll mark the end of our meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?